parliamentary board, including Ministers Rajnath Singh, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, all of them arriving at the BJP headquarters. Nitin Gadkari there arriving just moments ago. The Prime Minister is expected in the next few minutes. Remember, the Vice Presidential candidate of the NDA, victory is almost certain because the numbers clearly are with the NDA. As far as the Electoral College is concerned, you can see pictures of Rajnath Singh arriving at the BJP headquarters just moments ago. Prime Minister Modi will be arriving very soon, is the word that we're getting in. The others who've arrived so far, Union Ministers Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh, Nitin Gadkari, as well as, of course, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister. JP Nadda, the BJP party president, will also be present in the parliamentary board meeting. The last date for filing of nominations is the 19th of July, and the election is scheduled for the 6th of August. Arun Danta is joining us live from the BJP headquarters. I know it's useless to speculate when it comes to the BJP and its picks such as this for VP or president. But what are the names that are doing the rounds?
Well, Zaka, it's very difficult to speculate, as you rightly mentioned, because the way things have been happening in past couple of big decisions, it was, no way guessing for anybody. In fact, when they announced the name of Draupadi Murmu for their, presidential nominee, nobody knew till the time JP Nadda announced it from this stage. As far as the candidature of candidate for the vice president post is concerned, there are so many names. There were talks about Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi when he was not given additional tenure. At that point in time, people were talking about that whether he can be given responsibility. And then there were talks about Arif Mohammad Khan. People were talking about Amrinder Singh. And a few were talking about somebody from South India. So there are various names which are floating around, but nobody knows who's going to be the NDA's vice presidential nominee. A few minutes from now, because all the parliamentary board members have arrived here, Prime Minister Modi expected to reach here, then the discussion will commence. And today we are told that it's not going to be a long meeting because at around 7:30 all of them will be in the parliament. The dinner which has been organized for all the member of parliament of BJP. So once Prime Minister Modi arrives here at the BJP headquarters, then we can expect that within an hour, the meeting will be concluded, and perhaps today we'll have the name of the NDA's vice presidential nominee.
So what's the protocol like when the presidential Arun, when the presidential candidate's name was announced, when Draupadi Murmu's name was announced, JP Nadda had a press conference. So would the same protocol apply once the name is decided? Will the party president come and address the press and say that this is the NDA's candidate?
Well, Zaka, there is no clarity about about the press conference, who's going to address that press conference, whether that will take place today or not. But what we are picking here, from our sources, it is likely that the name will be announced today itself, because then you have Sunday tomorrow, and on Monday, the candidate, whoever it may be, will file the nomination. That's what we have given to understand, because 19th is the last day to file the nomination. So perhaps in a few hours from now we'll have the clarity as to who's going to be the vice presidential candidate of NDA. And as far as the stats are concerned, it is very much in favor of BJP. The total strength of the parliament, because vice president's election, the electoral college consists of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha MP. So out of 780, which is the existing number of the parliament, 390 is the majority mark. So BJP has around 394. So there's not going to be any issue for them as far as vice presidential candidate is concerned. So it's going to be a cakewalk for them. But who's going to be that candidate? What is the arithmetic which BJP puts behind the name? That's something which is going to be very, very interesting.
All right, we're waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive at the BJP headquarters, and then the parliamentary board will begin its meeting, its deliberations as to who is going to be the vice presidential pick for the NDA. For the moment, Arun, many thanks. We'll come back to you as and when that meeting begins. Meanwhile, the big focus at 6 o'clock this evening, a special investigation team that is probing the role of Teesta Setalvad in forming a conspiracy after the Gujarat 2002 riots has claimed that she deliberately did so to implicate the then Gujarat Chief Minister Narendra Modi. The SIT has also startlingly claimed that she was doing this at the behest of Ahmed Patel, the longtime political secretary of Sonia Gandhi. The Congress and the Patels' family, in fact, have dismissed these claims. The question is, were Teesta and gang doing this for political purposes? The SIT has also gone on to claim that Teesta apparently got separate checks, one for 5 lakhs, which was given to her by a person who was told to by Ahmed Patel, and then subsequently another one for 25 lakhs at a guest house just days after the Gujarat 2002 riots. Let me now bring you up to speed with what are the findings. Let's in fact play out the bites of both the BJP and the Congress in response to the SIT's findings.
अहमद पटेल जी के माध्यम से सोनिया जी ने नरेंद्र मोदी जी को घेरने की चेष्टा की, उन्हें अपमानित और उन्हें किस प्रकार से निष्कासित किया जाए इसकी चेष्टा की, और ये पूरे षड्यंत्र की रचयिता सोनिया गांधी है।
हर बार गुजरात चुनाव जब आता है तो कभी अंसारी जी का नाम लेकर शुरू हो जाएंगे, कभी स्वर्गीय अहमद पटेल जी का नाम लेकर शुरू हो जाएंगे। और मैं याद दिला दूं आपको, जिस एसआईटी ने श्री नरेंद्र मोदी को क्लीन चिट दी थी, उसके अध्यक्ष श्री राघवन को पुरस्कृत किया गया।
All right, this is what the SIT, and it submitted this to the Gujarat High Court. This is of course in the bail hearing of Teesta Setalvad. This is what the SIT says, that there was a conspiracy that was hatched at the behest of late Ahmed Patel. Remember, Ahmed Patel for the longest time was Sonia Gandhi's right-hand man, her political secretary. The plot involved Teesta Setalvad as well as 2 former Gujarat cops, former ADG R.B. Srikumar and also Sanjeev Bhatt, who was in the intelligence, state intelligence at that time. Teesta Setalvad apparently held meetings with Ahmed Patel just days after the Godhra incident that happened in February of 2002. Ahmed Patel gave Teesta Setalvad, first through a person appointed by him, 5 lakh rupees in the first installment, and then subsequently 25 lakh rupees. There was a meeting at a guest house that happened in Ahmedabad just days after the 2002 riots. There was a larger political objective, which was to destabilize the then Gujarat government under Chief Minister Narendra Modi. These are the findings of the SIT. This has now become a full-fledged political war between the Congress and the BJP. Tom Vadakar, national spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us. Ratan Sharda, RSS researcher on the broadcast this evening. Saira Shah Halim, author and activist. Kapil Madan, lawyer. And I must say, before we start the debate, that the Congress party has officially said that they will not be sending their representative for this debate. But let me start with Tom Vadakar. These are damning findings of the SIT, but the Congress has hit back and said, why are you attacking a dead man? It's been 5 years since Ahmed Patel died. If you had this information while he was alive, at least he could have defended himself. Tom.
Zaka, he would have definitely defended himself, in the sense he would have spoken out, because his condition towards the end of his life was very miserable. I've known the man for quite some time, and his helplessness was visible right on his face. The kind of treatment he received from Rahul Gandhi and company was shocking. Now, these are issues. If he was alive, what would he say? The issue is not about late Shri Ahmed Patel. The issue is about who was behind it. The questions being raised by the Bharatiya Janata Party is, did Sonia Gandhi know about it? If so, she must come out openly. It's not enough that Jairam Ramesh issues a press statement saying, well, you know, Gujarat elections and the script is all familiar. Why don't you deny that there was no connection? If you don't deny, that means there is an element of suspicion. The first time I met Teesta Setalvad was in Mr. Ahmed Patel's house. It was incidental, Zaka.
Okay.
I had just walked in. And I also do not agree with what Mumtaz, the daughter, says. She was not familiar with the daily routine of Mr. Ahmed Patel. You could not meet Ahmed Patel without an appointment. You had to call him up, and the time allotted, you had to be there. It could be late night, it could be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, any time. This man was a workaholic, and then he would rush to 10 Janpat to get his clearances. He would not breathe without instructions from 10 Janpad. I've
Okay.
known the man.
Sa-
He stood by them.
Saira
And
Shah
if he
Halim,
has-
this is what the SIT has said, and it's been submitted to a district court in Ahmedabad. The political objective of the applicant, in this case Tita Setalwad, while enacting this larger conspiracy, was dismissal or destabilization of the elected government in Gujarat by hook or crook, for which she obtained illegal financial and other benefits from a rival political party in lieu of her attempts to wrongly implicate, among others, the then chief minister. This is the affidavit that they have filed in a court. Surely both Tista and the Congress party need to explain.
See, Zaka, these conspiracy theories and these allegations are getting bizarre by the day. It seems that a particular political party is getting quite rattled because there are elections around the corner in that state. Because here you're putting all the allegations on an elderly, frail woman as if she sent the orders, and Mr. Ahmed Patel, who's not even alive to defend his position, has given an alleged amount of money to a human rights defender. It is so sorry that this regime is so fearful of one particular woman because it seems that a whole lot of skeletons are there in the closet and they're going to tumble out, anytime sooner or later. So that is what they're trying so hard to bury.
No,
And
but
it is
Saira, tell me
tragic
something.
that a woman
If they
who
wanted,
doesn't even have-
one second, if they wanted to bury it, they would have buried it. Why are they keeping the issue alive?
So
Number
that
one.
is
Number
what
two.
I'm,
No, no. Number two.
saying,
Number two.
Zaka.
You can say what you want about political motives and so on and so forth. Are you attributing then political motives to the Supreme Court also? Because the court said pretty much the same thing about a month ago when it delivered the final verdict, that there was a larger conspiracy and that Tista was involved in it.
See, all I'm trying to say is that right now there are various agencies that are dancing to the tune of the ruling regime. And it is very tragic that where justice should be delivered, justice is not being delivered, but justice is just being added to the powers. They are just making the powers more powerful. And
Okay.
I think that's not a healthy sign for a true democracy when the powerful who are already powerful, they are getting these, help from all these sources, and these very, very bizarre allegations are being put. I mean,
No,
Sonia Gandhi,
of
she's a
course, these
frail
are
elderly
allegations
woman.
that have been
She's
filed
not
in an
MP.
affidavit
She
before
does
a
not
court of
hold
law.
any particular
It's up to
post
Tista Setalwad and her
for the
lawyers to
regime to be so
contest that. But
fearful
here's
about.
what it says more, and I want to read this, and I want to ask Ratan Sharda to weigh in on this. 2 days later, in a meeting conducted at the Government Circuit House in Shahi Bagh between late Shri Ahmed Patel and the applicant Tista Setalwad, by the said witness, was handed over 25 lakh rupees more on the instructions of late Ahmed Patel. This cash money was given to the applicant. It was not part of any relief-related corpus because all the relief came through one centralized Gujarat Relief Committee. So this money was not going through that centralized system. It was seemingly given to her separately.
See, now
One
this
second.
is
I'm
slander.
asking that to Ratan Sharda, please. Yeah, thank you.
Zaka, actually, I must appreciate the left and the Islamist lobby for standing together even in the worst cases. Tista has been implicated by the Supreme Court. Are you saying, or is she saying that Supreme Court is the agency which is helping this current regime? This kind of implication, this kind of arguments don't wash well with the people. You remember there were a lot of fake stories by the same lady. Tista has been caught on the wrong foot for her perjury, for tutoring the witnesses, for misusing the funds. And now if you say, no, these funds didn't come, since so far all the stories are found to be true and properly checked and curated by the Supreme Court, Supreme Court's own SIT cleared Mr. Modi, but still these people kept on slamming him, kept on abusing him, and still they believe that the government and the courts are on their side. So
Okay.
this kind of approach of lying and damn lies continuously and then trying to defend her because her credibility is already in tatters. Now to show that this money was received by her, people would rather believe that than to believe a lady who has misused every kind of funds. She's a mercenary. She's not simply, do-gooder Samaritan.
I want to ask Kapil Madan, this is what the SIT is also going on to say, that Tista had multiple meetings with Ardi Srikumar, who was then ADGP, armed unit. He had nothing to do with the relief work in the aftermath of the riots. And Sanjeev Bhatt, who was in the State Intelligence Bureau. Neither of these two officers were involved in any relief work. And Kapil Madan, also please respond to what Ratan Sharda has said, that Tista has been implicated by no less than the Supreme Court not just for tutoring witnesses, but for filing affidavits on behalf of witnesses, and also for misuse of funds that came to her NGO. No less than the Supreme Court has said this. You have to unmute yourself, Kapil.
So, Zaka, let me give you a very point-wise rebuttal of what the allegations you have made. Now, first thing first, now if you look at the SIT, if you look at the entire Supreme Court's judgment, you would know, and you will also get to know, that whatever allegations this SIT is raising in this affidavit in Teesta's bail application, none of the allegations finds mentioned in the Supreme Court's judgment. And I challenge you also and Mr. Ratan Sharda also, please point out which paragraph you will find allegations where, you know, this money from Mr.
But the court judgment did say that there was a larger conspiracy and that she was part of that conspiracy to destabilize the government and to tarnish the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi. The court did say that.
Please hold on, Zaka. Please hold on.
No, did the Supreme Court judgment not mention
yes,
that?
Let me answer that. Now, Zaka, you would appreciate that was a Supreme Court appointed SIT, and it was a court monitored investigation that was being done by SIT.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in that SIT, they don't find any kind of allegation of giving money by Ahmed Patel to Teesta Setalwar. This is again a matter of fact. Now, suddenly, after 20 years, there is another SIT that is now starting the investigation. And after 20 years, you have the evidence where you are now claiming that Mr. Ahmed Patel paid so and so money to Teesta Setalwar. I ask a question. Now, during all this while, there was no embargo, there was no predicate that why this investigation against Teesta Setalwar, if there was a money angle involved, why it was not done for 20 long years, and why they waited, you know, so long, and they want to do this just before the Gujarat elections.
Okay, no, but Kapil, the fact is that SIT, the new SIT, got constituted after the Supreme Court judgment, which explicitly said, and this is a 3-judge bench, by the way, a 3-judge bench which explicitly said that the petitioner in this case, Teesta Setalwar, had got into a conspiracy to tarnish the image of the then government and the then Chief Minister, Narendra Modi. It's explicitly said this in the judgment. Now, why is the SIT finding it 20 years later? Because the SIT was constituted basis the Supreme Court judgment, which came a month ago.
So, yes, Zaka, let me respond to that. So, if you will, I am not here arguing what is the role of Teesta Setalwar. My argument is limited to the fact that there are allegations where money was paid by Mr.
Yes.
Ahmed Patel.
Yes.
Is there any reference to that effect in the Supreme Court's SIT?
Okay. Tom, but I can respond. There is no mention in the Supreme Court judgment about any kind of money being exchanged or that Ahmed Patel was involved in the larger conspiracy. Tom.
I'm challenging the BJP spokesperson.
Yeah, let him respond. You asked the question. Let him respond. Tom.
Zaka, after this decision of the court, the SIT was formed and it went into investigation. When the investigation was in progress, they ran into this information which has come out. This is not something that, I mean, the SIT went into functional mode of investigation, and it is then that they discovered this. It has come into public domain because it is just a recent discovery. So if you say 8 years back, this thing didn't happen, that didn't happen. But the fact is, the more you investigate, I'll tell you more details. If the SIT gets into the job, they won't stand on their legs. They'll have to run away. Because this is a conspiracy against the Prime Minister. I'm sorry, he's the Prime Minister now, the Chief Minister of Gujarat. And the kind of propaganda machinery that they set up, an NGO which claims to be Citizen for Justice. And what were they doing? They were writing letters to the SIT. Copies were not copies, and those letters were addressed to whom? To the United Nations. This was a huge propaganda machinery, functioned, financed by the Congress party. I dare say, will they deny that?
Saira Shah Halim, this is what the SIT goes on to say. The ocular evidence collected by the investigating officer points to several meetings that were conducted in Delhi with political leaders after the riots, wherein it was discussed by the accused applicant, in this case Teesta, with the leaders of a prominent national party which was in power at that time, to implicate the names of senior leaders of the BJP and in the state of Gujarat at that time. Now, surely,
I'll tell you what.
no, surely there needs to be an explanation for this if there were multiple meetings. Why was Teesta Setalwad having multiple meetings with members of the Congress party?
See, now these allegations will not work, okay? If they have alleged that there was a 30 lakh deal or whatever it was, then put up the money trail, in the public domain, because here these allegations and these bizarre accusations will not work at all. And especially you're accusing a man who's not even alive to defend his position. It is so, so sad. I mean, it's really the pits when people cook up such stuff, and especially when elections are around the corner. I mean, whatever allegations are being put, it has to be, what you call, attached with the validations and the proofs and the evidences, especially when you're talking about a dead man.
But
who's not
but
even
tell me,
alive
no,
to
one second.
talk.
Either of these two things has to be a truism. Either you're saying that they are bringing this because of elections. Now you tell me, what resonance does Ahmed Patel? It's been 5 years since he died. What resonance does he have in the Gujarat elections? Are people going to vote for
So
or
that
against
is what
basis
I'm
somebody who
highlighting.
has
No,
who has
Zaka,
died?
like,
So then
why
the
couldn't
logic that
they-
it's being revived now for the Gujarat elections does not
no,
hold.
when the man is not alive, you put these bizarre
Ye-
accusations. Why didn't these things come about
Saira,
when he
you
was
are
alive
saying,
to
you are
even
saying,
talk for
no,
himself?
one second. You are saying that these allegations have been brought forth now, 6 months before the Gujarat election, so that it benefits the BJP politically. Now, please
It
tell,
looks like
no,
that. Well,
please
it
tell
looks like
me,
that.
please tell me, how many people in Gujarat are going to vote for the BJP or against the BJP basis allegations against Ahmed Patel?
See, I'll tell you what, in all probability, BJP might come back with a thumping majority. And I'll tell you what, these are just, what do you call, these things keep pricking this regime, because it is a very, very big, riot. It was a very huge, huge incident. And this has tarnished the reputation of the party, and they are in a hurry to brush it under the carpet. But for some reason or the other, it keeps manifesting itself. So this is
Again,
again a last ditch
I don't
attempt
get
to bury
the
whatever
logic of the
it has
argument
been
here.
accused of
Ratan
in the
Sharda,
past.
please respond, because if the attempt by the BJP was to brush this under the carpet, then why are these facts coming out into the public domain? First of all, it came basis the Supreme Court judgment. It is after the Supreme Court judgment that the SIT got formed, and the SIT has submitted an affidavit opposing bail to Teesta Setalwad. So both of it can't be true. Either BJP is keeping this alive for the elections, or BJP is trying to hush it under the carpet. I mean, you can't have both arguments. Ratan Sharma.
See, as far as people are concerned, they know that Modi had been targeted. Modi was defamed despite all the evidence which was totally against what these people were claiming and doing. They framed up Modi in a best possible way, fixed him up in a best possible way. Today they are crying about fixing up Teesta. See, this case and this witness is not about Mr. Ahmed Patel. He died, but the person who carried on this continuous mercenary activity against Modi and entire Gujarat government is still alive. And she is the lady who did all the wrong things already I mentioned. I don't want to mention again. And who was Sri Kumar? The one who actually framed Nandbi Narayan. Who was this Sanjay Bhatt? He's in jail. He was not in the meeting which he claimed he was the meeting. These are the kind of people, what people already know. People have no faith, so don't try to defend the indefensible. And you have no right to talk about election, because every 6 months there is election. Every time I say, should we stop governance? Should the government stop every work because there is election every 6 months? And who is responsible? Same Congress.
Kapil Madan,
dissolving governments.
I'll give Kapil Madan the final word. It's not just about alleged payments in lieu of implicating the then Gujarat Chief Minister. Also, the SIT goes on to say there was fabrication of evidence and conjuring of facts. It's not only a case of fabrication of documents and evidence, but also influencing and tutoring witnesses and making them depose on pre-typed affidavits. Now, this is something that the Supreme Court has also mentioned in its judgment, that witnesses were tutored.
Now, Zaka, one thing, let me respond, and I will make myself very, very clear that had this been fact, was it the subject matter of the SIT, court-monitored SIT investigation? They have done, in fact, if you read the Supreme Court's judgment, you will find appreciation on the work that was done by SIT. In fact, the Supreme Court, on number of paragraphs, have said that the work of the SIT was quite exhaustive.
Yes.
They've examined each and every paragraph, each and every aspect. That when SIT has examined each and every aspect under the court-monitored supervision, then, and if that SIT does not talk about any money angle here, or Mr. Ahmed
No, but the
Patel.
judgment talks about conjuring witnesses, conjuring facts and tutoring witnesses. The judgment talks about it.
So all I am saying, so I am here making my submissions very limited to the point where the BJP makes the allegation in the press conference that the money was paid by Ahmed
No,
Patel.
I'm asking you a simple question. I have to wrap up in 30 seconds. Do you believe Teesta Setalwar tutored witnesses or not? Simple question.
So of course, I mean, that
Okay.
will the trial will tell. How can I say here?
Okay.
It is already said by the court.
It's been said by the Supreme Court, Kapil. You should read the judgment. Okay, we'll leave it at that. I want to thank all the guests, but I'm very clear that basis what the Supreme Court judgment has said, that's where the SIT investigation began. We'll see how this story progresses over the next few days and months. That's a wrap, but stick around to CNN News 18.
When you sit down with your father, Mr. Boni Kapoor, what are the conversations that you have now? Now that you're into the film industry, you're reading scripts, and your father has been the producer. Recently, Salman made a statement that, you know, मेरे career में जब बहुत बुरा वक्त था तो बोनी कपूर ने मुझे उठाया था. So, as a professional now, what are the conversations that you're having with a professional like him?
I think that a lot of creative discussions. We love watching movies, discussing movies. I love telling him about how my day's been on set. And he has इतना wisdom है उनके पास, उसने इतना कुछ देखा है अपनी ज़िंदगी में, इतना कुछ किया है कि वो ज्ञान बांटने के लिए हमेशा तैयार रहते हैं. और उनकी कहानी आपको एक बार सुननी चाहिए, because he's seen it all and he's done it all. तो कई बार मैं बस बैठ के सुनती हूँ और उनको बात करने का बहुत शौक है, स्पेशली जब वो अपने दोस्तों के साथ बैठते हैं, रूमी सर, जावेद साहब, शबाना मैम, और उनके जो किस्से हैं वो मतलब आप सुन के चौंक जाओगे कि ऐसे भी फिल्म्स बनते थे, ये फिल्म ऐसी बनी थी, ये इसके वक्त ये हो रहा था. सो देयर इज सो मच टू लर्न. ही इज बीन अ प्रोड्यूसर. मैंने देखा है कि जब एक्टर्स प्रोड्यूसर्स की ज़िंदगी थोड़ा मुश्किल करते हैं, डिमांड्स करते हैं, ये वो करते हैं, कि प्रोड्यूसर पे क्या प्रेशर्स होती हैं. सो आई try in whatever way I can to make it as easy as possible.
Wonderful. When I read about you, newspapers and websites and social media, sometimes I think you are under too much pressure of just looking good. Do you ever feel that thing that just people are a little judgmental of looks, especially women?
I do feel like that. I don't just think वो हमारी industry की problem है या हमारी gender की problem है. I think social media के बदौलत वो हर इंसान की प्रॉब्लम हो गई है कि वो जो
the filters and
no जो मतलब एक्सटर्नल चीज़ें जो हैं, दिखावट जो है, वो बहुत ज़रूरी हो गया लोगों के लिए. और उस चीज़ से मुझे डर लगने लगा कि हाँ, ऑफ कोर्स मुझे ड्रेसअप करने में, मेकअप, हेयर सब करने में, इवेंट्स के लिए जाने में, फ़ोटोज़ पोस्ट करने में बहुत मज़ा आता है. लेकिन अगर वो एक इंसान की ज़िंदगी बन जाती है तो वो बहुत डरावना हो जाता है. सो यू नीड टू नो व्हेन टू स्विच ऑफ. इवन व्हेन आई एम गेटिंग पैप्ड, wherever I'm getting papped, if I'm in a good mood and I'm feeling good, I think I'm pretty chirpy. But there are days where I'm just like, I don't know, my stomach's hurting, but I had to go to the gym because I have to look good for an event, or because I'm losing weight for a role and then I have to do training after, and like someone just told me that the film I wanted to do is now happening with someone, and like you're having a shitty day and then there are paps saying, Janvi ma'am, yahan turn karke wave kijiye please, and you know that your tights are too tight and this won't look flattering, and people will say that oh ye janbujh ke aise kapde pehen rahi, and all of these thoughts rush in your head in a matter of seconds, and then it shows on your face.
That's true.
And then they say कि इतनी खड़ूस है, हाई भी नहीं बोल सकती है. So you can't care about these things.
You've got into several roles. Like इसमें मैं जो आपके expressions देख रही हूँ, मैं ये expressions नहीं सोच सकती थी कि आप दे सकती हैं. For some reason, लोगों को ये लगता है कि जिसने गरीबी नहीं देखी, वो क्या जाने गरीब लड़की के दिल में क्या चल रहा होगा. ये सही है, ये गलत.
लेकिन वही तो काम है हमारा.
काम है आपका. ओके.
वही तो काम है हमारा. एंड आई अग्री, अगर एक इंसान अपने देश को नहीं जानता, अपने देश के लोगों को नहीं जानता, अगर उसने जिंदगी ना देखी हो, तो वो
An old proverb in diplomacy is that there are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. The changing geopolitical equations fit this matrix perfectly. Sri Lanka is possibly experiencing the end of a dynasty as Gotabaya Rajapaksa has quit, while UK is staring at a critical moment of electing a new Prime Minister. All this while the murder of Jamal Khashoggi looms large at the meeting between the US President Joe Biden and the Saudi Crown Prince MBS. Hello and a very warm welcome to World 360 with me, Akanksha Swaroop. We'll bring you all those stories. But first up are the headlines. As Sri Lanka awaits a new government to take charge on 20th July, the protesters continue to call for the entire government machinery to be replaced by a People's Council. US President Joe Biden raises the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi during a meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince. This during his Middle East tour after coming together with India, Israel and the UAE for the first ever I2U2 summit. And the race to number 10 Downing Street heats up as UK's former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak faces stiff competition from the British Foreign Minister Liz Truss and Junior Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt. Let's begin with our top focus, and that is the island nation of Sri Lanka, which is facing the test of democracy. The island nation has witnessed a multitude of political developments, this in the wake of its worst ever economic crisis in the past few days. Here's a quick timeline of what's happening in Sri Lanka in the last few days. On Wednesday, then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country and flew to the Maldives. A state of emergency was declared and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was declared the acting president in Gotabaya's absence. That afternoon, Sri Lankan protesters also took over the Prime Minister's office. Now, on Thursday, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, still the president, flew in a private jet to Singapore. Then, he finally emailed his much-awaited resignation to the Speaker of the Sri Lankan Parliament. Rajapaksa's resignation was officially accepted on Friday, and Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as the interim president of Sri Lanka. Now, the presidential elections will be held on 20th of July. Whoever takes up the post will have an array of big challenges to deal with. My colleague Purnima Murli gets us this ground report from Colombo as she's been tracking all those developments very closely for CNN News 18.
Protests still continue because they demand the resignation of Ranil Wickremesinghe, who's now the acting president and is also one of the nominees of the ruling party. And that's why protests at the Golf-Face continue. The voting for the president's post is scheduled for the 20th. But, protests are continuing. Do you think Ranil could be made the permanent president because the ruling party is now supporting him for the president's post?
Yeah, he's being supported, but the public, they don't want him. Most of Sri Lanka doesn't want him because we have been there from day one. We have supported him. We have seen this regime over and over again, and we have also seen him fail over and over again. So that is not what we need. What we need is good governance with minimum corruption.
All they want is good governance, and all-party government that could help Sri Lanka come out of the unprecedented economic crisis. And they believe that Ranil Wickremesinghe is someone who's only protecting the Rajapaksas. And for now, he's also one of the front runners for the post of the president. All eyes on the 20th when the voting for the top post will take place. Till then, protests here will continue peacefully, is what protesters say.
All right, let's try and quickly get in a sense of perspective in terms of everything that's happening in Sri Lanka right now. And for that, I'm joined in by former diplomat, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining this discussion today. Now, the People's Uprising has finally ousted the Rajapaksa regime in Sri Lanka. What are the challenges of a credible political transition in Sri Lanka ahead? How much of that depends on the engagement of the people's movement?
The Aragalaya, or the people's struggle, is looking for a new social contract, including a political contract. And what they are getting is a replacement of the Rajapakshas, backed by the Rajapakshas. Ranil Wickremesinghe is likely to win the presidential election in parliament because he is backed by Rajapaksa's party, which has a majority in parliament. So the new social compact is not negotiated and is unlikely to come out through this method. But this method may lead you to some stability so you can start IMF negotiations. So Sri Lanka is in a cleft stick, and whoever tries to put their hand between the prongs of the stick is likely to get bitten rather hard. And that is India's dilemma. So I think we are seeing a messy situation, a bad economy leading to what you call the people's struggle, which is dissatisfied with the political resolution and the economic resolution put aside for the moment.
Right. Ambassador, I know this is something you've already written about as well. India has been a good neighbor to Sri Lanka and it continues to do so. But what could the political and social chaos in Sri Lanka mean for India?
India cannot afford another failed state in South Asia after Afghanistan. Having said that, we don't want to poke our nose into the domestic politics of Sri Lanka, but then Sri Lankan polity must also rise to the occasion. If there is a popular rebellion, you need a Mandela, not a parliamentary solution, which the Araglia evidently does not want. So I'm not sure the election on 20th of a new president is a solution. It may very well be a continuation of the problem. India's dilemma is how to deal with a neighbor who permanently wants your largesse and support, but reserves the right to strategically annoy you whenever they wish. So therefore, the new social contract that the Sri Lankans work out must have a friendship clause for
All right,
India.
Ambassador, stay with us because we have some breaking news coming in. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just arrived at the BJP headquarters. Remember, today is a very crucial day as far as the vice presidential nominees are concerned. BJP is now to pick the VP nominee just ahead of the presidential polls. Remember, in just a few days from now, the presidential polls are all set to take place. And today, the vice presidential nominee will be announced. And as we can see, Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, has arrived at the BJP headquarters to chair that very crucial meeting where the nomination for the vice president will be announced in just a while from now. The BJP is all set to announce this vice presidential nominee in just a bit. And those are the latest details that we are bringing to you. For more details, I have with us Arun Dhanta, who's currently reporting from the BJP headquarters. Arun, if you could take us through what can we expect in the next few minutes now.
Well, Prime Minister Modi has just entered the BJP headquarters, and we can say that officially the parliamentary board, the highest decision-making body of BJP's meeting has started. All the other members, including Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Nitin Gadkari, B.L. Santosh, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, they all were waiting for Prime Minister Modi, and now the meeting has started. Now, who's going to be the vice presidential nominee of BJP? That's $1 million question. Nobody knows, and we are also told that this parliamentary board meeting may not, be a longer meeting because at around 7:30 there is a dinner which has been organized by BJP for all their MPs in the parliament. So, in a short while, perhaps in an hour, we'll see this meeting will be concluded, and then there will be official briefing from the BJP's side, which will then, give us the name who's going to be the nominee of NDA for the vice presidential election. As far as numbers are concerned, they are very much in favor of BJP, so there is not going to be any problem in the election.
Right. Arun, it's also important to talk about considering how the presidential nominee has gone ahead in the past few days. The opposition also remains in a fix at the moment.
Well, That's right. In fact, when BJP announced their candidate for the presidential election, many opposition leaders who were talking to us off camera, they were saying it was a masterstroke of BJP, because afterwards, once BJP announced the name, we saw various opposition parties coming in the fold of the NDA. They supported the candidature of Draupadi Murmu, and similarly, at this moment, opposition parties have not declared their candidate for the vice presidential election. In fact, BJP has also said it a few days ago that they will try to have a dialogue with the opposition parties to have a consensus candidate for the vice presidential election. So what will happen to that will depend on the face which BJP gives, because at this moment there are various names which are floating around. Some are saying that there will be a calculation from BJP side in which they will give a face from the South India to penetrate in the southern part of the country. Some say there will be a face from the North India, from this caste or from that caste. But as we had seen in the past, from the past precedents, BJP has really made it very, very secretive. So perhaps today we are expecting somebody who perhaps nobody had thought about. So in an hour from now, we'll perhaps get clarity as to who's going to be the vice presidential nominee of the NDA.
And for all you know, the BJP might yet again pull a rabbit out of its hat, as it did with the presidential nominee as well. Having said that, thank you, Arun, for bringing in all those details. And with that, let's resume our show as well. And I'm also joined in by our second guest, Dr. P. Saravanan Muthu, who's the founder, Center for Policy Alternatives, along with Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Ambassador, we'll come back to the topic, but let me also take a question from Dr. Muthu as well. Sir, it's important to talk about the people's uprising, which of course has finally managed to oust the Rajapaksa regime in Sri Lanka. What are the challenges ahead for a credible political transition now in the island nation?
Well, as you probably know, the president has resigned, and the constitutional processes by which a new president is to be appointed are now in train. In that, Parliament will meet next week, in which the contenders for the post of interim president will then enter into an election, which will hopefully happen on the 20th. And the person who emerges then will be the president for the unexpired term of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. That person, of course, must be a member of the existing parliament. Now, the challenges that that person will face, of course, is reducing the queues with regard to fuel, with regard to petrol, all of those kinds of things. Also, getting on with the negotiations with the IMF for the debt restructuring, and our negotiations with our international creditors to do likewise. So it's a major challenge that the person who gets elected will have to face. I do think that one of the things that they may well want to consider is that the new president brings in legislation to abolish the executive presidency and set a deadline for elections.
Isn't that something that Ranil Wickremesinghe has already started?
Well, certainly the negotiations with the IMF, the negotiations to get bridging finance and all of that have started. But they're going to take time, and we require a degree of political stability.
Dr. Saravanan Muthu, since you mentioned the IMF, the International Monetary Fund has said that it's deeply concerned about the ongoing crisis, but it wants stability in Sri Lanka to resume talks. Exactly. While a resolution of the political impasse may help in resuming those IMF talks, but will that just be enough?
No, it won't be enough. I mean, it has to be political stability whereby the Aragale or the protest movement are satisfied with the government in power, and the government is allowed to get on with the negotiations without any political disturbances. The government that will come into office on Wednesday is there for basically a period of 2 years. And in those 2 years, they have to prepare for the IMF deal. And then I think when we go to elections, we will then have to think in terms of, well, quite simply, redesigning our entire social contract, which has now come into shambles.
Before I quickly end this discussion, Dr. Saravanan Muthu, I know the immediate need is on beating the economic crisis, but there's a crucial question coming to mind, which might be fairly nascent. that the streets of Sri Lanka have witnessed a united struggle. Will this unity now pave way for wider acceptance of the 13th Amendment, which gives considerable autonomy to the Tamils?
Well, as far as the 13th Amendment is concerned, there are two facets of it which have never been implemented anywhere in the country. That is with regard to police powers and with regard to powers over land. The question, the Tamil question, the national question has taken a backseat in all of this. But certainly a new government, if it is to have a proper reform program, will have to take the 13th Amendment seriously.
Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, if I could bring you in on this, will the majority of Sinhalese Buddhists be willing to consider that the rights of minorities are equally important?
I think you need to look at it as a generational shift. And what we are seeing in the Araglia are younger people who seem to be beyond the ethnic question. But as the professor pointed out, the proof of the pudding will be when the 13th Amendment is implemented. Sri Lanka has gone far too long in making promises to its own people and to India, both of which it never fulfilled. And that is part of their problem. Today, if there was greater confidence with India, we could have set up an Aid Sri Lanka conference.
I'm sorry, I'll have to leave it at that. Many thanks to you, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh and Dr. Sarvana Muthu, for joining this discussion. And with that, let's now shift our focus over to other news stories. The United States President Joe Biden visited Saudi Arabia for the first time during his presidency and told Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that he held him responsible for the gruesome murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi back in the year 2018. Meanwhile, the significant I2U2 Leaders Summit between India, the United States and the UAE and Saudi Arabia was held this week. One major project that arose out of the talks, the UAE will invest $2 billion to develop a series of integrated food parks across India. Now, the four-nation grouping also discussed ways to ensure more diversified food production and food delivery systems. The global food crisis was a key part of the agenda for the meet, owing to the problems caused by Russia's war in Ukraine. And with that, let's also go across to Hadas Gold of the CNN, joining us from Jerusalem. Let me take a question from Hadas. Hadas, why is the I2U2, first of all, dubbed as the West Asian Quad? And apart from investments, how is the grouping now aiming to revitalize alliances and expand the Abraham Accords?
Well, the I2U2 may sound like a new rock band, but what it actually is it represents, the name represents Israel, India, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States in this sort of joint group that is trying to show that the new regional alliances, especially the ones between the UAE and Israel, can do much more than just politics or diplomacy and will make a difference to people on the ground. Just earlier today, the four leaders of these countries held a virtual meeting where they all made statements. President Biden of the United States and Prime Minister Lapid here in Israel were sitting together, while the Prime Minister of India and the President of the UAE were there virtually, and they talked about their efforts to increase investments in things like water, energy, transportation, space, health, and especially food security, which is, of course, such an issue right now that everyone is so concerned about as we're seeing problems with grain imports. And I think it's important that the United States, by participating in this new group, is trying to really counter other influences, especially from places like China into the region, and to reassure the Middle Eastern countries that they still want to have a presence and that they still want to show leadership here. And just the fact that Israel and the United Arab Emirates are sitting together in this group with India and the United States is so notable, because it was just a couple years ago that Israel and the UAE normalized relations. And this shows that the Abraham Accords have much more far-reaching consequences than just that announcement about normalizing relationships and just about politics. They're trying to show here this will go beyond this, will actually impact people's day-to-day lives in all of these countries.
All right, Hadas, thank you so much for bringing in all those details. And with that, let's now shift our attention over to the United Kingdom. UK's former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, is leading the race to number 10 Downing Street. 2 rounds of voting have taken place so far. In the first, Sunak secured 88 votes, while in the second, he secured 101 votes. Penny Mordaunt, the Junior Trade Minister, is at a close second. The other contenders still in the race are UK's Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, Tom Tugendhat, Chair of the Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee, Kemi Badenoch, and MP from Saffron Walden. Now remember, Boris Johnson resigned as the Prime Minister after nearly 60 of his own ministers resigned, following multiple scandals that plagued his tenure. For more details, let's quickly go across to my colleague Sanjay Suri, who's joining us live from London. Sanjay, Rishi Sunak has topped 2 votes, but he continues to face stiff competition from Truss, who has the backing of a number of senior figures in the junior trade minister, Penny Mordaunt, as well. Now, polls suggest that she's the most popular with party members. Are the odds still stacked in Sunak's favour?
Well, the odds are absolutely clear. In fact, that is to say, there are no odds so far as this round is concerned. It is almost certain that Rishi Sunak will be through to the final runoff. The odds now on who faces him. Liz Truss certainly is a significant opponent. She has the backing of Boris Johnson. That could well mean the kiss of death, considering that it was not long back that Boris Johnson said he will not back any candidate openly because he does not want to turn prejudices against them. That perhaps was honesty more than intended on that occasion. But there is, of course, as you say, Penny Mordaunt in the frame. But the question now is in how they perform in the debates. In the debate held on Friday, Penny Mordaunt was not very impressive, nor was Liz Truss. Tom Tugendhat certainly was the most impressive, and there's a possibility he may come up from bottom ranking to mount a challenge through this round that is to be completed yet.
All right, thank you so much for bringing in all those details, Sanjay Suri. Many thanks to you. And with that, it's time to slip into a short break as news and updates continue on the other side.
Just because I've grown up in a more comfortable environment doesn't make it any more or less valid. And I used to have this problem जहाँ मैं कहती थी कि whatever would happen in my life, because people would keep saying, but people are suffering here, people are suffering there. I'd be like, हाँ मेरा problem क्या है? But that's not healthy also. क्योंकि हर इंसान के लिए there will always be someone more privileged than you.
Of course.
There will always be. Then no one has a right to complain. But the point is that सब लोग कोई ना कोई चीज से गुजर कुछ ना कुछ चीजों से गुजर रहे हैं ना. There's someone more privileged than you. There's someone more privileged than anyone in this room. But does that make the problem less relevant?
So the name of the film is Good Luck Jerry, and there are 2 sisters, Jerry and Cherry. And a mother. And these 3 women in Bihar, these 3 Bihari women in Punjab are left to fend for themselves. Psychologically, in a household setup where there are only 2 sisters, जो बड़ी वाली होती है वो घर का बेटा बन जाती है. Have you ever related to her character? And how do you feel like being the elder girl of the family?
A little bit. Sometimes you feel like you have to. I mean, I'm not the eldest. Anshula Didi is the eldest. But many times I feel like there are some sacrifices that I'll want to make to ensure that my sister and my father are in a situation that would make us all happy. And like, I've not had to, but I know that if push comes to shove, I would do it. And I think that is an elder sister thing.
Elder sister syndrome.
Yeah, I think so a little bit. I think that you automatically think that you're kind of the sacrificial lamb a little bit.
And finally, what are the kind of directors you would like to work with?
मुझे comedy चाहिए, मुझे comedy करनी है, मुझे comedy चाहिए, मुझे comedy करनी है. रोहित शेट्टी सर प्लीज़ मुझे कास्ट कर लीजिए, मैं ऑडिशन कर लूँगी, सही से ऑडिशन कर लूँगी. और I really want to work with Karan. I really want to work with Bhansali. So I really want to work with Neeraj Khewan.
मैं बोलने वाली थी. हाँ. Great. I want to see many more films of yours becoming blockbusters, and I want to see you getting a lot of awards for your performances, Janvi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome. Ranbir Kapoor is telling me that I'm going to mess up my opening monologue.
Welcome back. You're watching World 360 with me, Akanksha Swaroop. Now, the Dalai Lama is on his first official visit to Ladakh. This after a gap of 2 years due to the pandemic. The Tibetan spiritual leader also visited Jammu and is on a month-long stay in Ladakh. The visit is significant, especially after the 2019 bifurcation of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir into the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had extended birthday greetings to His Holiness, something also viewed as a signal to China that the country needs to be more sensitive to the issue of Tibetan freedom. Now, the Dalai Lama's recent statement on China and on India-China ties has already made headlines. First up, let's also listen in to what exactly the Dalai Lama had to say about China.
The Chinese, not Chinese people, some Chinese hardliner, they consider me splittist and reactionary. So always criticize me. But now more and more Chinese now realize Dalai Lama not seeking independence, but within China, within People's Republic of China, meaningful autonomy and Tibetan Buddhist culture preserved. Basically, India and China, most populated two nations and neighbor. Sooner or later, you have to solve this problem through talk, through peaceful means. Use military force is outdated.
Now, the Kremlin has announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin will be visiting Iran next week on July 19th. This comes after US intelligence warned that Iran is expected to supply Russia with hundreds of drones for their war in Ukraine. Putin is slated to attend a trilateral meeting with the leaders of Iran and Turkey. It comes in the wake of US President Biden's Middle East tour with significant visits to Israel, West Bank and Saudi Arabia. Putin is set to have a separate meeting with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan while on his visit to Tehran. And that's all I have for you in this edition of Wealth 360. We'll be back same time next week. Thank you so much for watching.
CNN News 18 is New India's #1 news choice. Trounces, Times Now and Republic TV.
Yes, above
Ekta in me.
Ekta in him ahead of the curve. But at the time that it came to me, it seemed very exciting. I felt very lucky to be offered a film like this. Yeah, and here we are sitting about the film. Very excited. 22nd July, the film releases, and the 2-3 people who don't know that, it's an action entertainer. It's a badass, entertaining film, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Don't try to wrap up just yet.
क्यों हो गया? पीछे से बोले ना?
No one is saying. No one is saying. Lyle is just.
He's playing with your psyche all along.
Does he do this on sets as well? Do you guys feel very demotivated when you go home?
See, I've realized
demotivated. What is happening?
I wake up motivated.
Okay. And then you meet Ranbir.
Yeah. I'm fine.
See, you're
demotivating me since morning.
Every time you do interviews, you always ask the masti-khor questions. So when I'm allowed to do masti, why only you're allowed?
That's fine. But don't pretend on sets you're like very disciplined, very sweet, introvert.
Have you been on my set?
You're very disciplined on your set.
I don't know. Ask them. Am I?
Yeah.
He's very disciplined. No, genuinely, he is genuinely.
It's
a shocking transition that happens.
Okay, fine. It's a question I asked. Good to know.
She doesn't want to receive the answer, but she's living with it.
Okay. And as a co-star, he's okay.
Yeah, just about okay.
Just about okay.
He manages.
Yeah. We manage. We jail him.
We sail through.
I know you did Kathak for this film. You prepared for this film.
I did.
What about you? You prepared?
I prepared falling down in a chair. For 6 months, I was just falling down chairs.
It's a larger than life role, and you're so real.
On a serious note, this film came with a lot of challenges because it's a part which I've never done in my life. In the 15-year career that I've had, I'm playing 2 characters, Shamshera and Balli. It was a character which was filled with angst. It's something which angst doesn't naturally come from me. And Karan's one requirement for this part was at the very onset of this film, he said that I need you to be angry. Do you get angry? And when I told him, no, I don't get angry, his
I'm going to go straight to the BJP headquarters where the BJP Parliamentary Board to pick the next Vice President of India has begun. That meeting is being attended by the top brass of the party, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, BJP President JP Nadda. All of them are present in the BJP headquarters for this very important meeting. Soon after, we can expect the announcement of the vice presidential nominee. B.L. Santosh, the organization secretary of the party, can be seen. So is Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister in attendance. Also present is Home Minister Amit Shah, as I said, and also Nitin Gadkari, former BJP President. Arun Dhata is joining me live from the BJP headquarters. So when is the announcement, Arun? A press conference by Mr. Nadda, what time likely?
Well, Maria, as of now, there is no clarity about the timings as to when the parliamentary board meeting will get over and then when the press conference will start. But certainly we can say that the parliamentary board has started, and we are told that it's not going to be a long discussion because all of them will have to go to the parliament for that dinner party which has been organized for all the BJP MPs. So everyone is very keenly monitoring as to who's going to be the vice presidential candidate of NDA. There have been various names which people are talking about, but we'll only get the clarity when that will come from the horse's mouth.
Yes.
As it happened in case of Draupadi Murmu, we had seen that various opposition parties later on coming on board. Some of them were saying that they did not know about this move of BJP. Had they known, they would have given their support earlier. So they were saying that it was a master stroke of BJP. So this time around, what is going to be the arithmetic which BJP will apply before they give the name? Because it is not only about sending a message from the second top constitutional post, but also to manage the Rajya Sabha, because they know that they don't have that much number in Rajya Sabha. Therefore, they need somebody who can manage things, who has that reputation, who's experienced. So all these things will perhaps be in the minds of the leaders of the parliamentary board of BJP before they make any decision.
And Arun, the announcement is going to happen any moment, I would say, because soon after, all the leaders would be heading for the BJP's floor leaders meeting, which is going to take place in Parliament, which is ahead, of course, of the monsoon session that begins on 18th. Arun Dhata, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. The BJP has already announced their presidential nominee. The election for the next president of India will be taking place on 18th. That is our top focus here on the Billion Ideas. Hello and welcome to A Billion Ideas with me, Maria Shakil. As the presidential polls draw closer, political parties have been announcing their support for the two camps. On one side is the NDA's pick, Draupadi Murmu, who is clearly the president in waiting, and on the other side is the opposition's pick, Yashwant Sinha. Even though the political divide continues, Draupadi Murmu's candidature is historic. She is set to be the first tribal woman to be the president of India and the first Odia to really rise to the top constitutional office of the country. She served as the governor of Jharkhand from 2015 to 2021 and is an icon of the Indian fairy tale of rising from the bottom ranks to the top through sheer grit and determination. After her candidature, Prime Minister Modi said that millions of people who have faced hardships in life derive strength from the life of Draupadi Murmu and added she will make a great president. He also said her understanding of policy matters and compassionate nature will greatly benefit our country. There are great political calculations behind Murmu's candidature, but the historic weight of the elections cannot be ignored. The big question we ask today is, by simply opposing her on political grounds, is the opposition camp on the wrong side of history? On 21st, India will be getting its first tribal president and the second woman president. Can politicians and political parties afford to be on the wrong side of the history? Joining me on the show, Radhika Ramaseshan, columnist, Varun Singh, political analyst, Sanjay Kumar, professor of CSDS, and we also have Professor Kapil Kumar, historian of IGNOU. I'm going to begin with the woman on the panel. India will be getting its second woman president, Radhika Ramaseshan. Whatever said and done, would you say that knowing fully well that Yashwant Sinha is up against someone who has the numbers clearly stacked up for her, should political parties who are relatively not signaling which side they are on make the right pick and back Draupadi Murmu?
Well, truly, the Draupadi Murmu's candidacy has thrown the opposition into a complete mess. You know, it has completely befuddled the opposition, and you have already seen the JMM coming out of it, of the UPA. Now, the JMM really had no choice. I mean,
Yes.
Draupadi Murmu is an Adivasi, a woman to boot, and of course, I mean, she comes from a very, she comes from a not so well-off background.
Yes.
And here she is, I mean, politically empowered and ready to take the post of the president if all goes well. I'm not going to second guess anything.
Yes.
But so JMM has come out. Mamta Banerjee, who initiated the entire exercise to put up an opposition candidate, is herself in a bit of a tizzy. I mean, she went to the extent of saying that had we known the NDA was putting up an Adivasi as its candidate, then we might have reconsidered our own strategy. Yashwant Sinha, to start with, never really stood a chance against Draupadi Murmu. I'm not only talking about numbers. Numbers are stacked in favor of the NDA, but what does he represent? I mean,
Yes.
for the life of me, I couldn't think of what
Radhika, he if anything, represents the fact that he is a former BJP leader. How do we forget that? So for all those who are talking about the evil philosophy of the BJP, they cannot have a selective interpretation of the fact that Yashwant Sinha has been a BJP leader all his life, for most part of his life. Varun Singh, we are seeing emergence of new political axis, as has been the case of most presidential elections. There have been breaking of ranks. Look at the TDP. Look at the case of Uddhav Thackeray. Of course, his MLAs and MPs forced him to take that call. But again, JMM, they had no option but to back Draupadi Murmu. This is clearly, I would not even say catch-22 situation for them. They understand fully well that this is a case of a tribal president of India, and these are the parties who are in many ways reach out to the tribals. Maharashtra also has a significant tribal population.
Absolutely. It makes me feel very happy because a woman going and climbing up the ladder and assuming that post, and especially a woman like Draupadi Murmu, whose history is so difficult. Yes. She comes from and I wouldn't mind saying this word, but she comes from a very poor background. She studied, completed her graduation in spite of, coming from a community where you haven't seen so much of education. And she went on to become a clerk, then a teacher, then a minister in Orissa. And let me remind you a small thing. There was an instance where her own party government, when she was the governor in Jharkhand, she stalled two of their bills that she felt were anti-Adivasis. And even made the central government realize it, and then they had to be backed out. So if anyone who says that she comes from a background who wouldn't even understand how the parliament or how the constitution or any other administrative post functions would be completely wrong. And, all those people who tried to pull her down, they were not trying to pull her down because she was an Adivasi. They were trying to pull her down just because she is a woman. And whenever I see these men who actually come from a background who do not want women to climb up, they come up with such statements about evil philosophy or whatever. It could be, as you rightly pointed out, the same philosophies of Yashwant Sinha. He himself was a minister, not just a leader. He represented the entire government. And that philosophy, if it is not on Yashwant Sinha, how can it be on a woman who comes from a community which has never been represented?
So there are you're interestingly highlighting the woman aspect of this candidature. I'm going to talk about the woman aspect with Radhika in just a bit. But before that, Professor Kapil Kumar, this is history in making, and we are witnessing history unfold. What will you tell all those political parties who are continuing to back Yashwant Sinha? They say that they have to put up a symbolic fight, even if it is tokenism. Just look at the way BJP, when they were in opposition, they did not back the candidature of Mr. Narayanan. They did not back a similar candidate in the past.
You see, I have lost your voice, but I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, Professor Kumar, go ahead.
You see that, yeah, the thing is this, you look at it, who's leading it, Congress. Now, Congress has a history, right from the freedom struggle days, of not giving any tribal leader any position in its organizational hierarchy. They oppose the tribal movements, whether you pick up Birsa Munda, whether you pick up Santhan uprisings, whether you pick up Sitaram Raju during the freedom struggle. And once these leaders gave their lives fighting the British, the Congress will go and make them their heroes. That's what they tried to do all their life. Then look at the second part after 47. All these regions in the country, what was their developmental stage? I'll quote here Professor S.C. Dubey. I think it was the fourth plan when he was invited to make the fourth plan for the tribals. And he asked them to give them where the money is spent, under which heads. So the heads were given. And then he was asked, tell me, with these heads, how the money is spent. And will you believe that 80% of the money going for tribal welfare was going to build the houses and buy jeeps for the government officials. And Professor Dubey at that time refused that I can't sign this kind of a plan paper. And he was told, nahi, deri ho gayi hai, ye kar dijiye, wo kar dijiye, that kind of a thing. Now, if you look at the contribution of tribals, whether it is 1857, Tatya Tope in Panch Mahal with the Bheels, whether it's the uprisings in Jharkhand, Bihar, you come to 43, 44, the role which played by Cookies, the Nagas in Azad Hind Fauj. What we did? We tried to keep tribals as saying they should be brought into the mainstream.
Yes, without mainstreaming them.
Every Indian citizen and every Indian citizen and every Indian region is mainstream. Why do you differentiate this? This is periphery and this is mainstream. I'll give you one more example. In 1946 December, the session of Congress was held in Meerut.
Okay.
And the Nagaland representative there said that in Nagaland, certain American missionaries are preaching that Nagas should not join the Indian Union. The Congress must do something. And you know what was the answer of Nehru? It's on record. Freedom struggle of India will not start from Nagaland. You look at the Chakmas, which went to Bangladesh. The entire region of Chakmas wanted to join India. Congress conceded it. You look at the role of Gujars in the wars of 65 and 71.
That you have recalled so many instances in history. Let me bring in Sanjay Kumar as well. Sanjay Kumar, I'm looking at the numbers. This is clearly an outreach to the strong 10.42 scheduled tribes population of India. 10.42 crore scheduled tribes population, which are spread across many states. But of course, as we have seen, And all political parties do that. This is about political dividends as well, electoral dividends as well. The BJP certainly is hoping that of the 4 states that will go to polls in the next 1.5 years, which includes Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat and Chhattisgarh, where it is 128 seats reserved for scheduled tribes. The BJP had won just 35 in the last assembly elections. Do you think it will benefit them electorally as well?
One can imagine that such a move of the BJP is going to help BJP in mobilizing the tribal vote in its favor. But Maria, one should also note that tribal vote has already shifted in favor of BJP in a big way. If we look at the Lok Sabha elections and look at the 2014 and 2019 Lok Sabha elections, in 2019 elections, nationally 44% of the tribal vote went to BJP. Prior to 2014, it used to be in the range of 20-22%. So BJP's support base among the tribal vote nationally for the national election has doubled. It's almost reached 50%, 44-45%. If we look at the state assembly election, yes, BJP doesn't manage to mobilize as many tribal votes as it manages for the Lok Sabha election, but still it is a sizable number of votes which BJP has been getting among the tribals. But I still believe that such a move of BJP is going to help BJP in consolidating its tribal support base, especially for the state assembly election. You rightly mentioned 4 states goes to poll. All these states have a very sizable number of tribal voters, and I think BJP is certainly eyeing on the tribal votes for these state assembly elections as well as for the big election which takes place in 2024.
And Sanjay Kumar, historically speaking, the tribals have largely been with the Congress. The shift of the tribals happened towards Prime Minister Modi per se. It was the Modi voter that emerged, keeping in mind welfareism. If that welfareism card is working on ground, what does this mainstreaming, because BJP is saying that this is visible mainstreaming of the tribals with the top constitutional office which will be occupied by a tribal woman, someone who has risen in the ranks, someone who understands what does poverty mean. She is coming from the Santhal community. So she has that understanding, and hence the policies of the government will also be seen in that direction. So if the welfareism vote has already moved, what does this symbolism mean?
No, I think this symbolism, what does it bring about? Once we have a tribal woman as the president of this country, I think I can already see that there is an enthusiasm among the tribals of at least in the North India Hindi heartland, getting a sense that we are going to have a first tribal women president of this country. So a connect, people will start feeling a connect. And I think if this connect, this feeling of being connected or being having a person at the top position of this country, I think that's going to make a huge impact in the morale of the tribal. If some of them have feeling that they are not in the mainstream, which I don't believe, I think a lot of them still believe that they are in the mainstream of the country. I don't see a sense of alienation among them. But if there is some sense of alienation among them, I think a lot of that alienation is going to go away with this symbolism which BJP has, used for putting up a tribal women as the presidential candidate.
Okay. Radhika, 2 battles, 2017 and 2022, and I'm looking at these 2 battles. Ramnath Kovind, again, someone who has risen in the ranks, comes from a very, very humble background. Someone comes, he's of course a Dalit president, and versus Meera Kumar, who has a particular background, comes from a family. The BJP would say that this is a dynasty politics at play. The other one, this battle that we are seeing, Yashwant Sinha versus someone again coming from a very humble background. Do you think the BJP, when it projects this symbolism of its candidature, women, tribal, but also someone who understands what a huge population of this country goes through on a daily basis, that struggle for life, that struggle for survival?
Yeah, certainly, her life story, her rise in politics, in the BJP, I mean, it's really been a hard luck story for her. She lost her son, she lost her husband. I mean, it's not been smooth sailing at all for her. and she has achieved quite a bit on her own. I mean, let's not take that away from her. Yeah, that narrative, yes, it is moving. It will resonate with the tribals and also the underempowered sections, not just the Adivasis. So, to that extent, yes, she is going to have an impact. However, since she holds the office of the president, she obviously cannot campaign in any of the elections, just like Mr. Kovind could not. Of course, Ramnath Kovindji did address a couple of meetings and public functions in Uttar Pradesh. And if I were to say that, did he have an impact on the Dalit votes? Did the Dalit votes necessarily come to the BJP because of Ramnath Kovind? But he was one of the inputs. If the Dalit votes did come to the BJP, did gravitate towards the BJP in the Hindi heartland, it was also because of very hard work that the BJP has done on the ground in terms of getting sections of which were not with the party, and also in terms of living down its image as a party of as an urban party of the well-off. So similarly here, it just depends upon how the narrative travels across the country. You have rightly spoken about the states that go to polls and the sizable tribal population that all of them contain. So together with Draupadi Murmu's projection, the BJP will also have to do a lot of work on the ground in Gujarat. Gujarat is the first election that is coming, and there the Adivasi vote has tended to go with the Congress, at least in the assembly elections. So I think the BJP will have to work very hard on these sections. And yes, I mean, if you see the recent inductees into the BJP in Gujarat, there are some important tribal leaders who have come into the party from the Congress. So the BJP is acutely aware of the fact that it needs to work much more on its tribe Adivasi base in Gujarat, and it is doing that, working towards that end. And similarly, I think it will also work in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh.
Okay.
So Draupadi Murmu, I would say, is one strand in the overall
messaging of the BJP.
Win over the Adivasis.
Yes, and also a messaging which begins in 2014, where the BJP is out there to send a message that they are not a Hindi belt party. This is a party which is looking at expanding its footprints. And if anything, as far as this candidature is concerned, the first Udiya to be the president on 21st, potentially again, I would say. Professor Kapil Kumar, what would you tell the Congress party which says that they have also in the past chosen presidents who have been high on symbolism, so they have also done firsts. So this is, if anything, in addition to those list of firsts.
See, I will like to say here, I will like to look at it in a broader spectrum, I will not look at it from the vote politics that a political party will gain votes out of it or not and all. I am looking at it from a national perspective point of view, that those who were kept as marginalized, who were kept as debunked, oh, you have to join the mainstream and learn to be in the mainstream. They are going to head the republic. I am going to put it in a broader spectrum, that the development for years and years which didn't took place in these areas of tribal areas.
Yes.
You look at it, what is the development now taking place in those areas? So that is the kind of thing, a nation building which this nation wants. And I am very sure now that not only the urban youth and rural youth, but the youth coming from the tribal. You see, I feel very uncomfortable when I use the word tribal. I will better call them Aranyavasi, because Janjati is a total stupid translation of the word tribal which is used in Hindi for that. That this youth is now today realizing that the more country develops, the more their individual career develops. That link which has been established. You see, earlier people will go to America only to see that they have their career. Now, the mental outlook which has changed, it is, yes, if India is at prestige in the university, in the world, then only my job is prestigious in America, otherwise I will look down. So that linkage which has come between nationalism and the youth of the country in various parts of the country under this broad spectrum, so those who are not empowered They are feeling empowered today, and I look at it as a point of view of empowering not only just a woman or a lady, but the hundreds of tribes in this country who have contributed heavily in nation building, who have fought with the British, who have struggled for the freedom but were kept marginalized. So today they are seeing a development, and so is coming the political development in these areas. So it is a welcome sign. And the Congress has missed the bus again here, you know.
Congress has missed the bus, you're saying.
What they should do.
Okay, Varun Singh,
Yes,
you think the same?
yes,
Do you
I'm
think the
saying
same that Congress has missed the bus? The opposition parties who are all opposing Draupadi Murmu, have they missed the bus, or will you say that opposition parties always put up a presidential nominee? You may like it, or even if they know that the numbers are not there, this is an important fight which has to be undertaken. It is a fight which must be fought.
See, it is a fight that they have to fight.
Yes.
It is a battle that they have to fight. There is nothing that an opposition party can do. You cannot give a direct no election to any party in government, or else, you know, the biggest thing to keep your workers active is to contest elections. It may be any election. So they had to put in candidate, but they were taken by surprise when they saw that someone like Draupadi Murmu has been put up by NDA. Correctly pointed out by Radhika that when Mamata Banerjee realized that Adivasi, a tribal, has been put up as a candidate, she herself was taken aback. You know, but I just wanted to say a small thing. I don't see it as a symbolism. I think Draupadi Murmu is a candidature that deserves the post. And as rightly pointed out, Ramnath Kovind didn't do much to bring in the Dalit votes because the BJP now doesn't want to just do symbolism. They want to bring out those actual people who are marginalized, who people would feel that they cannot be, you know, brought to this post. Look at her past. She joined the BJP in Orissa at that time when BJP as a institution or as a
political party had no foothold there.
Absolutely. At that point of time, she joined it. And now when she's elevated to the post of president, look at it, such a beautiful message to all the loyalists. Even in the Congress, I would say all those Congress loyalists who are still stuck with the party when it is going down or not in its, you know, very beautiful phase. If those people who have stuck with their party, it is a message to all the political parties across the country that be loyal to the party. Don't just jump the boat.
Or maybe
stay with
you'll
the
become
party
you'll become president one day. 30 seconds for Radhika.
Yeah, you know, Maria, all I want to quickly say is that while it's a significant move in bridging the gap between the subaltern and the mainstream, between mainstreaming the subaltern, we must also take cognizance of one important fact, that the far left uprisings, the Naxalite or the Maoist groups have been very active only in the tribal pockets of India, whichever state they are in, they're active in, and you know, they have been recruiting their cadres from among the tribals. So we have to ask, why does this happen? Does the government need to invest more in the Adivasi-dominated areas in terms of development and in terms of infrastructure building, and more importantly, employment, education, health, sanitation, and so on, if mainstreaming is really to be
just look at that visual
logical conclusion.
She is standing tall and she's standing among the men, and just look at that visual, because she will be the next president of India. Really appreciate your time, Radhika Ramaseshan, Varun Singh, Sanjay Kumar, and Professor Kapil Kumar. That's all from me. I'll be seeing you next Saturday with another episode of A Billion Ideas.
वैसे थोड़ा मुश्किल है आपको इसमें इमेजिन करना। आपके पास जब ये फिल्म आई, सो दिस इज अ फिल्म बेस्ड इन बिहार, अ गर्ल फ्रॉम बिहार हु इज लिविंग इन पंजाब। उसकी ज़िंदगी में ड्रग्स आते हैं, उसकी ज़िंदगी में परेशानियां आती हैं, बाप का साया उसके सर से हट जाता है, बहुत तरह की परेशानियों से वो अकेली लड़की गुजरती है, और वो भी इत्तेफाक से बड़ी बहन है घर की। व्हाट वाज योर रिएक्शन टू द स्क्रिप्ट?
It's still a fun film.
Okay.
And there's a lot of humor and there's a lot of energy in the film, which is what excited me. क्योंकि अगर वो इन हालातों से गुजर रही है, इन मुश्किलों में उलझ रही है, और वो एक सीरियस टोनालिटी में होता, तो शायद मैं इतनी दिलचस्पी नहीं लेती इस फिल्म में. लेकिन क्योंकि सिद्धार्थ जो हमारे निर्देशक हैं उनका टेक इस फिल्म पे इतना कोकी था और जो ओरिजिनल फिल्म है कोलमावु कोकिला उसमें इतनी कॉमेडी थी तो वो देख के मैं काफ़ी एक्साइट हो गई.
You trained yourself as an actor in Lee Strasberg School of Theatre and Films. What is your biggest learning from learning acting?
Be honest and be in the moment, and nothing is more repulsive. Maybe repulsive is too strong a word, but more irksome than an external performance.
Just a shallow performance.
Or just like a performance in general. To be in the moment and to be honest in the moment is, I think, where the magic happens. Actually, Nawaz sir, who I met very briefly one day, said to me and Ishan, he said, all of the best acting is acting that happens by mistake. वो जो गलती से हो जाता है ना, वहाँ ही जादू होता है.
When you sit down with your father, Mr. Boni Kapoor, what are the conversations that you have now? Now that you're into the film industry, you're reading scripts, and your father has been the producer. Recently, Salman made a statement that, you know, मेरे career में जब बहुत बुरा वक्त था तो बोनी कपूर ने मुझे उठाया था. So, as a professional now, what are the conversations that you're having with a professional like him?
I think that a lot of creative discussions. We love watching movies, discussing movies. I love telling him about how my day's been on set. And he has itna wisdom.
Hello and welcome. You are watching Now Showing and I'm Atika Faruqi. Today the movies we talk about are emotionally uplifting and technically informative. The actor we speak to is the daughter of one of the biggest superstars we have loved and a young director who is a PhD and a lover of forensics and is now a Hindi film director. Bravo! I'm Atika and here we begin. Of course, with the highlights. Shabash Mithu is a tell-all story of Mithali Raj. It's a biographical drama that every woman must see. Hit the First Case is a taut, informative thriller worth watching for its unusual story and Rajkumar Rao. Janhvi Kapoor is a delight to talk to as her film Good Luck Jerry knocks at the box office. Director Sailesh Kolanu on why he chose filmmaking after a PhD and love for forensics. And Salma Agha's daughter Zara Khan talks about the influence of Noor Jahan on her voice. Let's first talk about Shabash Mithu, that is a biographical film drama made on the life and times of Mithali Raj. It releases in cinema halls this week. Women in sports have always got it rough. They've always got it tough. From battling their neighborhood, their own parental traumas, their pressures and traditions set by ancestors, the sexist world inside and outside, and of course the rules set for commerce that often favors the male, whether as a lead actor or a lead sportsperson. Many fields are still governed by gender politics. This is exactly what director Srijit Mukherjee attempts to address. More than a rags to riches story?
मैं 8 साल की थी जब किसी ने ये सपना दिखाया था.
Shabash Mithu is a story of how women find an awakening in a man's world, and that too from the 90s. Her 23-year-long career is riddled with accolades and achievements, including breaking the world record for highest individual test score at the age of 19 and serving as the first Indian captain to lead the country to 2 World Cup finals. Shabash Mithu tells the story of Mithali Durai Raj and highlights the predicaments and battles of women's cricket in India.
ऐसा खेल के दिखाएंगे कि हमारी पहचान कोई कभी भूल ना पाए.
It all starts off from the childhood, where director Srijit Mukherjee addresses gender bias in homes. Noori, a boisterous girl in the neighborhood, becomes an angel friend to Mithu and the two smash patriarchy like how, even at that young age. Shorter hair and a smart attitude is what the kids display. A brilliant performance by Vijay Raz adds gravitas to a child's struggle that has given preference over her brother. What stands out is a terrific performance by Taapsee, where she gets into the psyche of Mithali instead of copying her body language or the way she talks and walks.
सर हमारी भी तो कोई पहचान है.
Written by Priya Evan, the cricket is secondary and instead focuses on the touching friendship between the two girls here for a considerable stretch, and that the fight with the invisible and the visible system that works against the women.
5
वुमेन क्रिकेटर्स के नाम बताओ।
Sorry, sir.
I must say, Mukesh Habra's casting gives us a team peppered with fine performances. A scene stealing Sampa Mandal as Neelu and the other girls who have a history. They come from various social stratas and backgrounds. Someone's father had a tea stall. One was into making leather out of animal hides. She did it until she played cricket. That's the stories we had needed to know. In some parts, though, the film seems long and needed a sharper edit. The songs by Amit Trivedi and the background music is supportive to the theme all the time. It's a biographical film that has tried to stay true to the journey of Mithali Raj instead of adding drama from the creator's own perspective. It's a must-watch for all women. Ultimately, Mithali Raj did change perspectives, and that is a story that warrants a watch on the big screen.
नाम मशहूर है पुछ ले पिंड दे टब्बर टब्बर नू गज दे ने गज ने गबरू.
Now let's talk about Hit, the first case. Remakes can be a bit difficult to helm. They can either end up being a washed-up version of the original or turn into something even better. In the case of Rajkumar Rao and Sania Malhotra's Hit, the first case, the result is quite amazing. Directed by Dr. Sailesh Kolanu, who also directed the original, the plot revolves around police officer Vikram, who is caught up in solving a kidnapping case and also struggles to deal with the demons of his past. The film throws light on mental health and post-traumatic stress disorder.
क्या हुआ था तुम्हारे साथ विकी?
When Vikram's fiancée Neha, that is Sania Malhotra, goes missing, he realizes that the two cases that he's solving are interconnected. He's thrown into a dark alley of deceit, lies and some unfinished business from his own police force. For most parts of the film, Vikram's journey is not just about hunting down the kidnapper, but also trying to come to terms with his own past. The film's narrative is simple yet complex, and despite the subplots, the director manages to keep you engaged and actually over the seat's edge most of the time. The film's highlight and its biggest strength, though, is the performance of its lead actor, Rajkumar Rao. Raj has delivered a fine performance that's not only nuanced but also is extremely refined. The varied emotions of loss, anger, grief and frustration that he shows as Vikram tries to join the dots in this puzzle are simply amazing. There are scenes where he also shows the vulnerable side of a cop and the toll the job takes on the person. Sania Malhotra excels in her scene.
Please allow yourself to heal.
The issue with Hit is only that the climax does not live up to the pace of the intellectual first 1.5 hours, and the reason of it all becomes a bit underwhelming. If you are a Rajkumar Rao fan, this one's for you. Don't miss it.
मैं डिपार्टमेंट नहीं छोड़ सकता.
Janhvi Kapoor has an expressive face and a huge pair of shoes to fill. Sridevi's daughter is getting scripts that tests her acting abilities now. In Anand Rai's Next, she plays a girl from Bihar who's stuck in a drug racket in Punjab. She tells me what are the best things about her life and the not so good aspects too.
सर, हम काम करना चाहते हैं.
हम? पाजी दीदी बिहार की हैं, उधर मैं हम होता है.
माँ बीमार है, इलाज के लिए पैसे.
लड़कियों का काम नहीं है.
आपकी तो टट्टी भी सूंघ लेता है ना पुलिस वाले.
वैसे थोड़ा मुश्किल है आपको इसमें इमेजिन करना. आपके पास जब ये फिल्म आई, so this is a film based in Bihar, a girl from Bihar who's living in Punjab. उसकी जिंदगी में ड्रग्स आते हैं, उसकी ज़िंदगी में परेशानियां आती हैं, बाप का साया उसके सर से हट जाता है, बहुत तरह की परेशानियों से वो अकेली लड़की गुजरती है और वो भी इत्तेफाक से बड़ी बहन है घर की. What was your reaction to the script?
It's still a fun film.
Okay.
And there's a lot of humor and there's a lot of energy in the film, which is what excited me. क्योंकि अगर वो इन हालातों से गुजर रही है, मुश्किलों में उलझ रही है और वो एक सीरियस टोनालिटी में होता तो शायद मैं इतनी दिलचस्पी नहीं लेती इस फिल्म में. लेकिन क्योंकि सिद्धार्थ जो हमारे निर्देशक हैं उनका टेक इस फिल्म पे इतना कोकी था, और जो ओरिजिनल फिल्म है कोलमावु कोकिला उसमें इतनी कॉमेडी थी, तो वो देख के मैं काफ़ी एक्साइट हो गई।
लड़की तो सब करके निकल रही है। इस लड़की को डर ना लगता?
पाजी इसका विश्वास मत करना, ये लड़की हम सबको मरवाएगी।
You trained yourself as an actor in Lee Strasberg School of Theatre and Films. What is your biggest learning from learning acting?
Be honest and be in the moment, and nothing is more repulsive. Maybe repulsive is too strong a word, but more irksome than an external performance.
Just a shallow performance.
Or just like a performance in general. To be in the moment and to be honest in the moment is, I think, where the magic happens. Actually, Nawaz sir, who I met very briefly one day, said to me and Ishan, he said, all of the best acting is acting that happens by mistake. वो जो गलती से हो जाता है ना, वहाँ ही जादू होता है।
हम जितने दिखते हैं उतने हैं नहीं।
When you sit down with your father, Mr. Boni Kapoor, what are the conversations that you have now? Now that you're into the film industry, you're reading scripts, and your father has been the producer. Recently, Salman made a statement that, you know, मेरे career में जब बहुत बुरा वक्त था तो बोनी कपूर ने मुझे उठाया था. So, as a professional now, what are the conversations that you're having with a professional like him?
I think that a lot of creative discussions. We love watching movies, discussing movies. I love telling him about how my day's been on set, and he has इतना wisdom है उनके पास, उतने इतना कुछ देखा है अपनी ज़िंदगी में, इतना कुछ किया है कि वो ज्ञान बांटने के लिए हमेशा तैयार रहते हैं। और उनकी कहानी आपको एक बार सुननी चाहिए, because he's seen it all and he's done it all. तो कई बार मैं बस बैठ के सुनती हूँ और उनको बात करने का बहुत शौक है, स्पेशली जब वो अपने दोस्तों के साथ बैठते हैं, रूमी सर, जावेद साहब, शबाना मैम, और उनके जो किस्से हैं वो मतलब आप सुन के चौंक जाओगे कि ऐसे भी फिल्म्स बनते थे, ये फिल्म ऐसी बनी थी, ये इसके वक्त ये हो रहा था। सो देयर सो मच टू लर्न। ही इज बीन अ प्रोड्यूसर। मैंने देखा है कि जब एक्टर्स प्रोड्यूसर्स की ज़िंदगी थोड़ा मुश्किल करते हैं, डिमांड्स करते हैं, ये वो करते हैं, कि प्रोड्यूसर पे क्या प्रेशर्स होती हैं। सो I try in whatever way I can to make it as easy as possible.
Wonderful. When I read about you, newspapers and websites and social media, sometimes I think you are under too much pressure of just looking good. Do you ever feel that thing that just people are a little judgmental of looks, especially women?
I do feel like that. I don't just think वो हमारी इंडस्ट्री की प्रॉब्लम है या हमारी जेंडर की प्रॉब्लम है. आई थिंक सोशल मीडिया के बदौलत वो हर इंसान की प्रॉब्लम हो गई है कि वो जो
the filters and
वो जो मतलब एक्सटर्नल चीज़ें जो हैं दिखावट जो है वो बहुत ज़रूरी हो गया लोगों के लिए. और उस चीज़ से मुझे डर लगने लगा है कि हाँ ऑफ कोर्स मुझे ड्रेसअप करने में, मेकअप हेयर सब करने में, इवेंट्स के लिए जाने में, फ़ोटोज़ पोस्ट करने में बहुत मज़ा आता है. लेकिन अगर वो एक इंसान की ज़िंदगी बन जाती है तो वो बहुत डरावना हो जाता है. सो यू नीड टू नो व्हेन टू स्विच ऑफ. इवन व्हेन आई एम गेटिंग पैप्ड, wherever I'm getting papped, if I'm in a good mood and I'm feeling good, I think I'm pretty chirpy. But there are days where I'm just like, I don't know, my stomach's hurting, but I had to go to the gym because I have to look good for an event, or because I'm losing weight for a role, and then I have to do training after, and like someone just told me that the film I wanted to do is now happening with someone, and like you're having a shitty day, and then there are paps saying, Janvi ma'am, yahan turn karke wave kijiye please, and you know that your tights are too tight and this won't look flattering, and people will say that oh ye janbujh ke aise kapde pehen rahi, and all of these thoughts rush in your head in a matter of seconds, and then it shows on your face.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they say कि इतनी खड़ूस है, हाई भी नहीं बोल सकती है. So you can't care about these things.
इनको लंग कैंसर है, स्टेज 2.
मरी नहीं हो तुम, जिंदा हो अभी, और जब तक हम जिंदा हैं मरने नहीं देंगे तुम्हें.
You've got into several roles. Like इसमें मैं जो आपके expressions देख रही हूँ, मैं ये expressions नहीं सोच सकती थी कि आप दे सकती हैं. For some reason, लोगों को ये लगता है कि जिसने गरीबी नहीं देखी वो क्या जाने गरीब लड़की के दिल में क्या चल रहा होगा. ये सही है, ये गलत?
लेकिन वही तो काम है हमारा.
काम है आपका. ओके.
वही तो काम है हमारा. एंड आई अग्री, अगर एक इंसान अपने देश को नहीं जानता, अपने देश के लोगों को नहीं जानता, अगर उसने जिंदगी ना देखी हो, तो वो कनेक्ट कैसे करेगा या कैसे करेगी. बट हैविंग सेड दैट, गरीबी is a relatable problem.
True.
It's like objectively it's bad, right?
Yeah.
It's a struggle objectively. अगर आप अपने घर पे खाना नहीं डाल सकते या अगर आपका घर है ही नहीं, तो वो relatable problem है.
Right.
लोगों को लगता है अगर आप 5-star होटल के बेडरूम में रो रहे हो तो वो रोना है ही नहीं.
Exactly.
वो प्रॉब्लम्स है ही नहीं.
That's
लेकिन
true.
वैसे भी नहीं है. So there are parallels, and just because I've grown up in a more comfortable environment doesn't make it any more or less valid. And I used to have this problem जहाँ मैं कहती थी कि whatever would happen in my life, because people would keep saying, but people are suffering here, people are suffering there.
Yeah.
I'd be like, हाँ मेरा problem क्या है? But
Yeah.
that's not healthy also.
Yeah.
क्योंकि हर इंसान के लिए there will always be someone more privileged than you.
Of course.
There will always be. Then no one has a right to complain. But the point is that सब लोग कोई ना कोई चीज से कुछ ना कुछ चीजों से गुजर रहे हैं ना.
Of course.
There's someone more privileged than you.
Yeah.
There's someone more privileged than anyone in this room. But
That's
does
true.
that make the problem less relevant?
तो गंदा काम छोड़ा है कि नहीं? इसके चक्कर में हमारा शादी भी नहीं होगा.
अरे तो तुम्हारे लिए कर भी नहीं रहे हैं, अपने लिए कर रहे हैं.
So the name of the film is Good Luck Jerry, and there are two sisters, Jerry and Cherry.
Cherry, yeah.
And a mother. And these three women in Bihar, these three Bihari women in Punjab, are left to fend for themselves. Psychologically, in a household setup where there are only two sisters, जो बड़ी वाली होती है वो घर का बेटा बन जाती है. Have you ever related to her character? And how do you feel like being the elder girl of the family?
A little bit. Sometimes you feel like you have to. I mean, I'm not the eldest. Anshula Didi is the eldest. But many times I feel like there are some sacrifices that I'll want to make to ensure that my sister and my father are in a situation that would make us all happy. And like, I've not had to, but I know that if push comes to shove, I would do it. And I think that is an elder sister thing.
Elder sister syndrome.
Yeah, I think so a little bit. I think that you automatically think that you're kind of the sacrificial
lamb
a little bit.
And finally, what are the kind of directors you would like to work with?
मुझे comedy चाहिए, मुझे comedy करनी है, मुझे comedy चाहिए, मुझे comedy करनी है. रोहित शेट्टी सर प्लीज़ मुझे कास्ट कर लीजिए, मैं ऑडिशन कर लूँगी, सही से ऑडिशन कर लूँगी. और I really want to work with Karan. I really want to work with Bhansali. So I really want to work with Neeraj Khewan.
मैं बोलने वाली थी. हाँ. Great. I want to see many more films of yours becoming blockbusters.
Thank you so much.
I want to see you getting a lot of awards for your performance in
Thank you
Jandi.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. So taking a break right now, in some time we have a director who is a PhD from Australia and came back to India to make a hit film. After the break.
Beautiful girl. This guy, I tell you, not that kind of good news about Sri Lanka. For Sri Lanka, is there any hope, any good news?
Sri Lanka. There are few scenarios which may work.
Are you just looking for out here, or you really have some thoughts? Such as?
Such as sublet to the global powerhouse like China, US, Canada.
You know, I thought of that. We were discussing this offline, and I think that's a problem because you become a vassal state, no? You become yes men of the big power.
Exactly. Then they could make Bahubali, Pushpa, RRR, KGF in Sinhalese as another option.
But it's a country of just 22 million. I mean, they can't get India-like figures from sales of tickets and all, yeah?
They can, if the citizens watch the movie again and again and again and again.
Are you on something, Mr. Aryaputty? Because, I mean, they told me #1 in Asia. #1 political informed person of India and Asia. Any other options?
Yes. Make Sri Lanka the next IPL team.
No, come on, that's not possible. I mean, can they be evaluated at 28 billion by 2027? I mean, come on, one team.
I must tell you, you have a point. There is a last option, but I'm scared to say it.
No, come on, please. This is the spot where you must tell us what you have because we want to give hope to people. Please tell me.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous for me.
Dangerous? Why would it be dangerous for you? We're not even involved. I mean, we're India, that's Sri Lanka. Come on, no one watches this show, I'll tell you honestly. You can say what you want. We just abuse sometimes and nobody complains. Go on.
On that point, you have convinced me. You have convinced me.
Oh, okay. Go on, please. Go on.
There is one place where billions of rupees are available.
Billions of rupees available? Kahan pe, sir?
No questions asked.
What? I can't believe this, really?
No money trail, no auditing, no question of accountability.
No question of...
Welcome back. You're watching Now Showing. I'm Atika Faruqi. This week, we start talking exclusively and especially with the directors. They are the captains of the ship. That is the film project they're working on. It's their vision that gets translated on screen. Director Sailesh Kolanu did his PhD in Australia and is crazy about forensics. That's how the original Telugu version of Hit, the first case, got made, and now the Hindi version is at the box office. More about this director, who uniquely has the prefix doctor in his name.
I did my undergraduation in optometry from the BITS Pilani University, and uske baad mein I started practicing optometry in Hyderabad. I practiced as an optometrist for 5 years. Before moving to Sydney to do my PhD, I got a scholarship to do PhD at the University of New South Wales in Australia. I moved to Australia and finished my PhD in 2016. So then after that I worked as a scientist. During all this time, writing stories was a hobby. It was a stress buster for me. But then slowly and eventually I started getting attracted. I was drawn into the craft of screenwriting. I learned how to
चयन प्रक्रिया के लिए हम सब लोग बैठे थे। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की उपस्थिति में सभी बातों की चर्चा हुई। कई नाम हमारे पास आए जिन पर चर्चा हुई, बड़ी वृहद चर्चा हुई। सभी दृष्टि से चर्चा में समाज की दृष्टि से, देश की आवश्यकता, बाकी सारी चीज़ों को देख करके सभी नामों पर बड़ा गौर किया गया। लेकिन सभी नामों पर गौर करने के बाद हम सब लोग और भारतीय जनता पार्टी की संसदीय बोर्ड इस निष्कर्ष पर पहुंची है कि उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी और एनडीए के प्रत्याशी के रूप में हमारे किसान पुत्र श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी को हम उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए अपना प्रत्याशी के रूप में घोषित करते हैं। हम सब लोग जानते हैं कि जगदीप धनखड़ जी, श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी, ये वेस्ट बंगाल के अभी गवर्नर हैं और लगभग 3 दशक तक सार्वजनिक जीवन में इन्होंने काम किया है। धनखड़ जी एक साधारण परिवार से, किसान पुत्र, एग्रेरियन परिवार से, किसान की भूमि से आते हुए अपने जीवन में सामाजिक और आर्थिक बाधाओं को पार करते हुए उन्होंने अपने जीवन में उच्च लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने में और सामाजिक जीवन के रूप में देश की सेवा करने में कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ी है। जैसा मैंने बताया कि वो एक किसान परिवार को बिलोंग करते हैं और उनका लालन पालन झुंझुनू के एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट के गांव में वहाँ हुआ और गांव के स्कूल से पढ़ाई करते हुए उन्होंने सैनिक स्कूल चित्तौड़गढ़ से अपनी शिक्षा ली। बाद में वो राजस्थान यूनिवर्सिटी में फ़िज़िक्स की उन्होंने पढ़ाई की और साथ में एलएलबी किया। वह फर्स्ट जनरेशन के प्रोफेशनल हैं, यानी वकालत के रूप में वो फर्स्ट जनरेशन में वकील बने और बहुत ही कम समय में उन्होंने अपने आप को राजस्थान हाई कोर्ट में एक सक्षम वकील, एक प्रसिद्ध वकील के रूप में स्थापित किया और साथ ही साथ सुप्रीम कोर्ट में भी उन्होंने अपना नाम एक वकील के रूप में स्थापित किया। सो ही इज़ ए फर्स्ट जनरेशन लॉयर, फर्स्ट जनरेशन प्रोफेशनल। और सार्वजनिक जीवन में आने से पहले वो एक प्रतिष्ठित वकील के रूप में उन्होंने अपने आप को स्थापित किया। वो पहली बार लोकसभा 1989 में झुंझुनू से चुनाव लड़ा और वहाँ से वो विजय हासिल की और बाद में वो 1990 से लेकर के 1993 तक वह पार्लियामेंट्री अफेयर्स मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट फॉर पार्लियामेंट्री अफेयर्स के मंत्री रहे और बाद में वो राजस्थान के किशनगढ़ कंस्टिट्यूएंसी अजमेर डिस्ट्रिक्ट से विधानसभा के भी सदस्य रहे और उनका एक लंबा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्सपीरियंस रहा है। हम सब जानते हैं कि वो जुलाई महीने 2019 में उन्होंने राज्यपाल का पद वेस्ट बंगाल में पश्चिम बंगाल के राज्यपाल के पद को संभाला एज गवर्नर ऑफ वेस्ट बंगाल और हम जानते हैं कि उनकी छवि पीपल्स गवर्नर, लोगों के दिल पर राज करने वाले ऐसे शख्सियत के रूप में वो राज्यपाल के रूप में स्थापित हुए हैं और उन्होंने जिस तरीके से सार्वजनिक जीवन में सेवा की है और लंबे समय तक सेवा की है, इन सारी बातों को ध्यान में रखते हुए भारतीय जनता पार्टी और एनडीए ने ये तय किया कि किसान पुत्र साधारण परिवार से बढ़ते हुए फर्स्ट जनरेशन के प्रोफेशनल फुल्ली इक्विप्ड एज एन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कैपेसिटी और जिनका सार्वजनिक जीवन में एक बहुत ही अच्छा योगदान रहा है, ऐसे प्रत्याशी को भारतीय जनता पार्टी और एनडीए अपना उपराष्ट्रपति वाइस प्रेसिडेंट का प्रत्याशी घोषित करती है और आगे चल कर के उनके नॉमिनेशन की तारीख भी तय होगी और फिर चुनाव की दृष्टि से तैयारी होगी। मुझे यही आप सबको बताना था। श्री जगदीप धनखड़ हमारे एनडीए के प्रत्याशी हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
There you have it, the BJP National President JP Nadda announcing that the NDA's vice presidential candidate will be the Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar. Kisan Putra is how JP Nadda described Mr. Dhankar. Mr. Dhankar, of course, has been the Governor of Bengal since 2019. He's a Supreme Court lawyer. He's from Junjunu in Rajasthan, where he's been a member of parliament. He was also a member of the Legislative Assembly of Rajasthan as well. And this is an interesting pick because not only is he a Kisan Putra, he also comes from the influential Jat community. Let me go across to our colleagues. Maria Shakil, our political editor, is joining us. Arun Dhanta is live for us from the BJP headquarters. So the big question is, why Jagdeep Dhankar?
Well, Zaka, I think a lot of calculations have gone into it, but also a realization that will it be a difficult choice for Mamata Banerjee to oppose? Because he is, after all, the governor of Jharkhand. We have seen that breaking of ranks that happened when the BJP in 2017 had chosen Ramnath Kovind. Nitish Kumar found it difficult to oppose his candidature because he came, he was the governor of Jharkhand. And look what has happened in case of Draupadi Murmu as well. JMM backed her. Of course, she is the, tribal, she's going to be the first tribal president, but also she was the governor of Jharkhand. So it remains to be seen whether Mamata Banerjee will be backing him. But yes, the BJP wants to send this message, Zaka, that this is the spirit of New India, that this is about those who have risen in the ranks, those who understand the life of difficulties, the life of economic limit, the life where you have limited economic options, economic hurdles, and that is what they are trying to highlight in case of Jagdeep Dhankar as well. Well, it was being guessed as to what is the real symbolism behind it. The BJP could have chosen any person which is high on symbolism, and does he really have an experience to manage the upper house of parliament, because he will be the chairman of the upper house as well, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. All those questions will be asked, but certainly a very, very interesting pick, keeping in mind also the Rajasthan elections.
All right, that is true. Rajasthan goes to polls late next year. But let me also go across to Arun Dhanta. So this is the brief bio we have of Jagdeep Dhankar. He's from Rajasthan. He's had a successful legal career before he became a full-time politician. He was the youngest president of the Rajasthan Bar Association. He's been both MP from Junjunu and an MLA before that. He's also had ministerial experience. In 1990, he was part of the Union Cabinet, and since 2019, he's been the governor of Bengal. Arun Dhanta is also joining us live. Arun, what is the story behind Jagdeep Dhankar's selection? Because no one quite anticipated this. He's had high-profile sort of run-ins, if you will, with the Bengal Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee. But I think Maria raised a valid point. Will Mamta be able to not bank Dhankar because they've had a relationship over the last many years now?
Well, Zaka, it's a surprising, decision from the Bharatiya Janata Party, because even in the evening, few hours ago, we had seen a photo, being tweeted by Prime Minister's office with Jagdeep Dhankar. At that point in time, people were speculating perhaps he might be in the contention, but then suddenly, the other photos popped up. Prime Minister meeting with other governors of the other states. So, but now when JP Nadda announced the name of the governor of West Bengal, Jagdeep Dhankar, that he's going to be the NDA's nominee for the vice presidential election, it's very surprising. Of course, he comes with the experience, administrative experience. He's been governor there in West Bengal since 2019, and his tenure there in West Bengal is known to everyone. The kind of relationship which we had seen between the chief minister and the governor, always on the boil. He was not holding his punches back whenever it required, and the way JP Nadda started talking about him, Kisan Putra, is something which BJP wants to send out a message that the second highest constitutional post of the country will go to a Kisan Putra. He's someone who has come from a rural background, someone who had faced huge difficulties in the initial career of his life, to reach up to the High Court of Rajasthan, where he practiced law, then reaching to the Supreme Court, and also contested the election. Though he only managed to stay there for 2 years in Lok Sabha, he also was the MOS in the Parliamentary Affairs in 1991. So he has that experience, but also importantly the role which he will have to play in Rajya Sabha. That is something which is very, very crucial, because we know the strength of the opposition is much more in Rajya Sabha, and therefore the responsibility will be bigger, that how he is going to manage things in Rajya
Okay,
Sabha.
Arun, give me a moment. We're also joined on the phone line by BJP National Spokesperson and IT Cell Chief Amit Malviya. Amit, explain to our viewers the choice of Jagdeep Dhankar. What is the calculation and why him?
Well, Zaka, if you see Mr. Dhankar's role in West Bengal, a state that has seen near collapse of law and order and the gruesome post-poll violence, he stuck steadfastly to the constitutionally laid down principles, irrespective of what Mamata Banerjee and the TMC government may have said about Jagdeep Dhankar and accused him of stepping over the line. He was someone who never breached the constitutional limits. He did not ever step out of his realm as governor. And I think that is incredible quality for someone to occupy the vice president's office. That experience, that legal understanding, that acumen that he brings is quite unparalleled. Having said that, he naturally represents the aspiration of the farming community. He is a Jat by caste. He comes from Rajasthan. He's somebody who is a self-made man, ticks a lot of boxes, is somebody who's widely seen as a man who will add to the heft of the vice president's office.
In picking Mr. Dhankar, Amit, you've also thrown a googly at Mamata Banerjee. Will she be able to oppose his candidature?
Well, it is for Mamata Banerjee to decide if she wants to support or oppose Mr. Dhankar, because she's not had the best of relationship with him. But just like the presidential candidate, we will ensure that our vice president nominee sails through.
Also, very quickly, when your party president, Mr. Nadda, addressed the press, the first word that he used to describe Mr. Dhankar was Kisan Putra. How important is this nomination to bridge the gap, or at least perceived gap, between your government and farmers?
Well, the fact is that Mr. Dhankar, coming from the community that he does, the fact that he has an agrarian background, comes from the dominant Jat community, which is involved in farming and agriculture in a big way, it certainly helps to have him there. let's not forget that politics and those who occupy constitutional position also embody the aspiration of people they represent. And in that sense, Mr. Dhankar brings along a great deal of virtues with him.
All right, and very quickly, he'll also have to now be the presiding officer in the Rajya Sabha. I'm assuming, of course, because of his legal background, that is something that would come naturally to him.
That's obvious because the vice president is by definition the chair of the House. And like I said, his legal acumen, his steadfastness to constitutionally laid down principles and procedures, as we've seen in West Bengal, despite grave provocations from Mamata Banerjee and the TMC, I think that is going to be a great advantage that he brings.
All right, Amit Malviya, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us with the first BJP reaction to the choice of Jagdeep Dhankar as the NDA's vice presidential nominee. Let me go back to our reporters. Maria is also there. Maria, you know, with Draupadi Murmu, it was straight up, it was historic, the nomination of the first tribal woman to become the president of India. In Mr. Dhankar's case, what is the political calculation behind his choice?
Well, Zaka, I think the BJP also realizes that in the upper house soon, the primary opposition party in terms of numbers will be the Trinamool Congress. And given the manner in which the governor and the chief minister has had their equation, and also it is being sensed certainly that he played an important role in positioning and the views of the center or upheld the constitution the manner in which he did, he will be able to understand the way the TMC will be functioning. But I think the bigger question now is, will Mamata Banerjee be opposing her candidature? What we are being told by top sources in the party is that Governor Dhankar, of course, has had run-ins with the chief minister. It's very clear how it has played out in the last few years since 2019 that he took the governor's office, became the governor in Bengal. But he's also someone who understands how TMC functions, how the state government has operated. So has there been some kind of understanding that has been reached between the BJP and Mamata Banerjee, because there was an important meeting, what sources say, that has taken place in Darjeeling as well. So Mamata Banerjee, what we are being told, Zaka, will be holding a meeting with the MPs of the party over of course, the stand that the party will be taking in the upcoming monsoon session that begins from 18th, but also there will be a call that will be taken on the vice presidential polls. So the candidacy of Jagdeep Dhankar is a googly, and I think it's less about symbolism but more about political calculations, understanding fully well that the dynamics in the upper house is going to change completely in the next few months.
Arun Dhanta is also there on the Smita Prakash, editor ANI, is now joining us. Smita, how would you characterize the selection of Jagdeep Dhankar as the NDA's nominee or the choice for vice president? Surprising?
Yes. Well, some people had guessed it as much. I think there were some 20 names which were everybody was guessing. But then, I mean, everybody's seen how the Modi government acts on these, people who you think are absolute sure shots get struck out, and there's always a surprise element in who they appoint. And quite clearly, as Maria was saying, that this is a political decision. It's a very strong political message, and especially I think if I was to be unkind, I would say that a lot of trolling will happen on social media with regard to Mamata Banerjee, who's made her displeasure pretty clear about the governor, the honorable governor. And now he will be sitting in Rajya Sabha, and I wonder what it will mean for people from her party, who in fact one person even called him a clown. So he will be sitting there while the chair will be Mr. Dhankar. So interesting what is going to happen. And I wonder who's going to go as governor to West Bengal. Yeah, that will be interesting to see, because again, it's a politically very sensitive position with regard to the equation between Mamata and the BJP.
No, Mamata Banerjee and Governor Dhankar have had frequent run-ins, public run-ins as well. But do you think this also puts Mamata Banerjee in a bit of a tough position, because can she be seen publicly opposing his candidature? I mean, we've seen in the past, for example, when Ramnath Kovind's name was announced, Nitish Kumar, despite not being in the NDA at that time, chose to break ranks and support Mr. Kovind. We've seen that with JMM also, because in Draupadi Murmu's case. Will Mamata not be able to back Mr. Dhankar?
There's no way that she will. I mean, I'm presuming she's a different cup of tea as compared to Nitish Kumar. I mean, look, Mamta, to give her credit, she has backed Pranab Mukherjee in the past. And yeah, there are occasions, but it's been so acrimonious relationship with Jagdish Thakur. So I doubt she lend her support to his candidature. She's certainly going to oppose that. And I don't think many in the opposition parties will have that kind of a, tilt towards Mr. Dhankar like they had towards Draupadi Murmu. He's quite obviously a very strong political figure, even though Draupadi Murmu is also from the BJP, but still he's kind of, is more right, I would say. So I doubt whether Mamata Banerjee will support his candidature. But yes, it is going to be very interesting a few years now.
Let me ask Maria also, the fact that in Ms. Murmu's case, you have a series of opposition parties from Shiv Sena, TDP, of course, JMM, all breaking ranks with the opposition and deciding to support her. And you can say, it's a historic election, the first tribal woman to become president of India, so that's understandable. But in Mr. Dhankar's case, do you see a lot of opposition parties breaking ranks and supporting his candidature?
I'll just add a bit to what Smita said, Zaka, and it's interesting what Mamata Banerjee had to say when the candidacy of Draupadi Murmu was announced, that had she known about it, perhaps she would have reacted differently. That part unhone pehle nahi bataya was her words famously, because she understands that it's a bit very, very difficult for her. Yashwant Sinha is a former BJP leader. Let's be very clear. For all those who have been talking about, the evil philosophy behind the idea behind Draupadi Murmu, how can they not associate the same with Yashwant Sinha? And Mamata Banerjee herself projects herself as a woman leader. How do you oppose the first tribal woman to be the president? I think she, in this particular case, she understands that because the opposition has not announced a vice presidential candidate, and again, the numbers in both the houses are clearly in favor of the BJP or the NDA's nominee, will Mamata Banerjee be again opposing just for the sake of opposition? And will she be really standing with the Congress party? Because if she has made her displeasure known very clearly on the issue of Yashwant Sinha, and only had the BJP announced the candidature of Draupadi Murmu earlier, she could have done a rethink. Then does she have that option right now? Yes, she does. And Azaka, we are only told now by the TMC sources is that there is an official press release that has come that there will be a discussion. So because there has been a reach out that has happened by the BJP towards Mamata Banerjee in the last 24 hours with regards to Jagdeep Dhankar's candidature. So will there be a surprise? Will Mamata Banerjee not stand with the Congress just for opposing it, because she understands fully well that the numbers are not with the Congress or any opposition candidate?
No, so Smita, this again puts, like I said, the opposition in a bit of a bind, because they can't be seen as publicly backing Mr. Dhankar, because Mr. Dhankar has taken very, very acrimonious positions, if I may, especially vis-a-vis Mamata Banerjee. But also at the same time, it's not a historic candidature like that of Draupadi Murmu. So who do you think the opposition could likely field if they were to field a candidate to take on Mr. Dhankar?
It's difficult, right? Because the numbers are not with them. But I think there will be a lot of consultation now, because they have to come up with a candidate who seems plausible to win, because Yashwant Sinha really stands no chance opposite Draupadi Murmu. So, who they will pick is anybody's guess, but I think Sharad Pawar and Sonia Gandhi will have some consultations. On the one hand, I would think that Mamata should be glad that, she will see the back of Mr. Dhankar from the stage. She'll have a little more freedom when he's gone. And the daily squabbles, battles that she's been having with the governor house will end. So she should be happy that he leaves. But it goes, one wonders who will replace him. That's why I said it's very important to see who will replace Mr. Dhankar in West Bengal. But more importantly, I think this is a signal that the BJP or the NDA now has political governors. They're not going to be like the erstwhile image of what a governor used to be, where which was ceremonial and pomp and pageantry and this is going to be more than that. This is going to be not just being political at the time of something happening like a trust vote or something major. It's going to be something which is going to be a politically active governor all through and through, because that's what Mr. Dhankar has been, literally every week going to the universities, going to panchayat level, getting involved with everything, putting in something like what a lieutenant governor in Delhi is.
I want to go back to Maria. So, will there also be an overhaul of some of the governors? I think about 3 or 4 of them today met with the Prime Minister. Of course, they've all come here for the presidential banquet that's going to happen, I think, tomorrow. Or tonight, I'm not sure. But will there be an overhaul now of some of the Raj Bhavans as well?
Yes, Zaka, because a number of governors are holding offices, are in charge of 2 states. So there will be overhaul that will happen. But I think, Zaka, it's interesting that even the functioning of Rajya Sabha, will it reflect how Governor Dhankar used to run the Raj Bhavan in Bengal? So, will that change completely? Because so far the Vice President in Venkaiah Naidu, he made that effort to really send the message to opposition that treasury benches and opposition can have some meeting ground. So he was seen as someone who was acceptable across party lines. Jagdeep Dhankar, when he functioned as the governor of the state of West Bengal, he was outright centre's man. He was seen as someone who was towing the BJP's line. So will that really mean that he will reflect the same when he takes the chair of the Rajya Sabha? So because the dynamics, Zaka, in the next few months of the Rajya Sabha is going to change. The role that the TMC will be playing based on its numerical strength, it can make the BJP's position difficult in the passage of legislation. The BJP has its numbers, let's be clear, it's above 100 for the first time that the BJP has reached, but the messaging, the larger messaging, will the Rajya Sabha function in the similar way, which is a very personality-driven Raj Bhavan that we saw when Mr. Dhankar was there in Bengal? Will that be reflecting also in the Rajya Sabha? That will be interesting to watch. But I think this is not high on symbolism. It is not about a first here. Yeah. This is more to do with political calculations. It's about sending a message to Mamata Banerjee that will she be standing with a governor from her state, a choice that made JMM pick Draupadi Murmu. Of course, the tribal aspect is there, but also Nitish Kumar, as you were highlighting rightly.
Okay, Arun is also there with us. Arun, talking about the political calculations, of course, Mr. Dhankar hails from Rajasthan. He's been a member of parliament before, he's been an MLA before, he comes from the influential Jat community, and as JP Nadda described him, the very first words that he used was Kisan Putra. How important is it in the context of the Rajasthan election that is slated to happen late next year, and also more importantly, to try and bridge this perceived gap between the Modi government and the farmer community?
Well, Zaka, that's a very, very important point. Even though government has taken back the farm laws, but still there is lost, faith in the government of the farmers, and that's something which really going to help the BJP and the government. And because remember the farm protests which were taking place, majority of them were dominated by the Jat farmers. So, Jagdeep Dhankar, coming from Rajasthan, Jhunjhunu, has a farmer background and a Jat farmer. So that is something which of course is going to work in favor of BJP. They want to once again get back the faith of the farmers, and of course the administrative experience that he brings to the table. That is something which is also very important. But Rajasthan is going to polls next year. Perhaps this decision of BJP will work for them as well. So, but importantly, how he's going to manage things in Rajya Sabha, that is something which is going to be very, very important. Of course, the messaging has gone from the BJP side that they have given the second highest constitutional post to a farmer son, and secondly, how he's going to build that rapport with all the MPs there, because functioning of the parliament parliament of especially Rajya Sabha is very, very important. So therefore, government want that consensus, and because he is ex-officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, so he'll have to play a very, very crucial role.
All right, we're getting live shots of the PM now leaving the BJP party headquarters. He was, of course, part of that parliamentary board meeting. You can see JP Nadda, Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh saying their goodbyes to the Prime Minister. Of course, the meeting has just concluded. Now Amit Shah and JP Nadda having a quiet word as Rajnath Singh overlooks from the sidelines the Prime Minister's convoy just leaving the BJP party headquarters. Mr. R. Rajagopalan is also joining us. Mr. Rajagopalan, so Jagdeep Dhankar, the governor of Bengal, is the NDA's choice to be the next vice president. Your first thoughts on this pick? Many are saying it's a surprising choice.
It is a surprising. And second thing, my understanding is that Rajasthan is going to polls. Rajya Sabha, the members of parliament are very unruly. Even Venkaiah Naidu could not handle it. Now, Mr. Dhankar, having the experience, having served as a governor of West Bengal, he has the choice of, controlling. I cannot say control, but he can conduct the house of the Rajya Sabha, because the government, though it has got 100 members,
okay,
but the opposition members are
Mr. Rajagopalan,
150.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but we have senior TMC leader Madan Mitra on the phone line. Mr. Mitra, your first reaction: Jagdeep Dhankar has been nominated by the NDA to be the vice presidential candidate.
Let me make it very crystal clear to you.
Yeah.
It is a very sensitive matter, and the decision of our party will be taken by Ms. Mamata Banerjee only. So in this matter, so far we are concerned, we don't like to make any comment, but it will positively be decided by Mamata Banerjee, and our decision will be taken by her.
Mr. Mitra, do you see Mr. Dhankar as representing Bengal in that sense? After all, he's been governor there for the last 3.5 years or so.
I don't like to make any comments, but only I could say that Mr. Dhankar did not play any active role so far the Bengal is concerned, and she did do nothing good with which the Bengalis are happy.
So you are saying that whatever track record there is between your government and the governor, of course it's public knowledge, that all was not well, right?
And whatever it is, the decision will be taken by Mamata Banerjee. Absolutely a matter of the parliamentary party. So I can only say we are keeping a close vigil on the situation.
You are not saying that you are averse to supporting him?
I don't like to make any comment. Whatever has to be said. Okay, thank you.
All right, Madan Mitra, thank you very much. SP Singh Baghel, Minister in the central government, is also joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Baghel. Your first reaction: Kisan Putra Jagdeep Dhankar is how your party president described Mr. Dhankar. The choice is a bit surprising. No one quite expected the NDA to nominate Mr. Dhankar as the vice president. What are the reasons behind it?
बीजेपी ने और एनडीए ने जो उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी का चयन किया है, हम उसका स्वागत और अभिनंदन करते हैं। और मेरी पहली रिएक्शन है कि अभी सौगत राय जी को मैं सुन रहा था, वो कह रहे थे कि मैं कोई खूबी जिसे मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि जगदीप धनखड़ का व्यक्तित्व खूबियों से भरा हुआ है। वो एक सामान्य किसान जाट परिवार में पैदा हुए हैं, उसके बाद वो एमएलए रहे, एमपी रहे, भारत सरकार में मंत्री रहे, शिक्षाविद हैं, कानूनविद हैं, माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट में उन्होंने वकालत की है। और उसके अलावा जिन पदों पर रहे हैं उन्होंने अमित छाप छोड़ी है। और पश्चिम बंगाल के राज्यपाल, महामहिम राज्यपाल के रूप में उन्होंने अपने संवैधानिक दायित्वों का जो उपयोग किया है, उससे कुछ जिन लोगों का डेमोक्रेसी में और संविधान में विश्वास नहीं है, उनको भी होता है। महामहिम जब केसीनाथ त्रिपाठी पश्चिम बंगाल के राज्यपाल थे, जो उत्तर प्रदेश के स्पीकर भी थे और इलाहाबाद उच्च न्यायालय के प्रथम 4-5 वकीलों में उनकी गिनती की, उनसे भी ममता बनर्जी को दिक्कत थी।
बघेल जी, लेकिन ये बताइए, द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के केस में ऐतिहासिक था, हिस्टोरिक था कि फर्स्ट ट्राइबल महिला को आप राष्ट्रपति बना रहे हैं। इनके केस में तो कोई ऐसा ऐतिहासिक चीज नहीं है।
ये आवाज कट रही है, लेकिन अभी कोई कह रहे थे कि उनको अल्पसंख्यक बनाना चाहिए। हिंदी तय करेगा ना कि किसको बनाना है, विपक्ष थोड़ा क्या करेगा कि वो अपना प्रत्याशी क्या कर लेंगे, उनको लड़ाना हो। लेकिन ये जीत निकल गई, मैंने बताया ना कि किसान परिवार से और शेखावती जाते हैं, वीरों की भूमि है, त्याग तपस्या और बलिदान की भूमि है, जहाँ लोग अन्याय अत्याचार और शोषण के खिलाफ मुहैया सल्तनत से भी लड़ते रहे हैं। वहीं के माटी के पुत्र को जो है राष्ट्रपति पद एनडीए ने घोषित किया है। निश्चित तौर से वो एक पढ़े लिखे कानूनी शिक्षा नीति में राज्यसभा का संचालन में अपनी योग्यता और अपने अनुभव को लाभ सभा को मिलेगा।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद बघेल साहब हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए और आपके रिएक्शन के लिए। लेट मी गो बैक टू मिस्टर राजगोपालन. Yes, you were saying that this is a pretty unexpected choice, but how do you see this playing itself out, Mr. Rajgopalan? Because it is a bit of a googly for Mamata Banerjee. Can she be seen as opposed to him, and yet at the same time can she be seen as supporting him because of the public spats that they've had in the last 3 years?
And moreover, if you noticed, the Narendra Modi's mindset is having chosen only the governors. Ramnath Govind was governor.
Yes.
Even Madam Murmuru was governor. He is also governor. Therefore, Mr. Narendra Modi wants the constitution position to be replaced by another constitution person who held the office. That is one. Second thing is a message for Rajasthan, which is going for post next year. Second, most important, the Trinamool Congress MPs have been more, vocal. They have been very outright. And second thing, they have done some sort of, during Venkaiah Naidu's time, they stood up and they did a march, and, they created some sort of mayhem in the house, hooliganism in the house. And moreover, they danced on the table. Now, Mr. Dhankar, having dealt Bengal politics, having known Bengal politics, it is a sort of a check on Mamata Banerjee. That is what I could manage, narrate. The reason being, for Uddhav Thackeray, there is Eknath Shinde. For Mamata Banerjee, there is Jagdeep Dhankar at the highest place, because Rajya Sabha is going to be very crucial for next 2-3 years for Narendra Modi's government. Suppose if next year they brought UCC bill, Uniform Civil Code bill, Rajya Sabha will not deliberate it. But Jagdeep Dhankar can give a room for the government to debate it, deliberate it, whether they pass it or not. There will be an open, a window will be open for Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar. So therefore, it's a political decision that Narendra Modi has taken to nominate Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar. Another very interesting question, which I would like to ask you, the reason who will replace Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar in West Bengal? He must be an equal person,
Yeah.
Otherwise, there won't be a bonny home between Mamata Banerjee and the governor.
Okay,
So
Mr.
my
Rajgopalan, I'm
understanding-
completely out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday evening with your thoughts and perspective. Like I said, quite a surprising choice in Jagdeep Dhankar. Now, it'll be interesting to see how the TMC reacts to it and how the rest of the opposition reacts to it. And more importantly, who the opposition's candidate will be. Will they put one? Because the numbers are clearly not on their side. And if they do, who that candidate might be. That's a wrap. But join us in a moment on the other side for News Blitz.
Sort of thing that I should expect.
Fantastic. You got it.
No,
She
it's
got
not.
it. You got it.
They're lying.
She got it.
This is what it is. This is what
cracked.
it is. Talking to Ranbir
got
is
it.
just being lied to all the time.
The director saying you got it.
She's
I didn't say
acted,
anything also.
No, it's not. No. Now
suspense
Huh?
is only gone.
No,
now.
it's not
It's
gone.
gone
He
now.
can't release his interview. She's
Yeah,
picked up the
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, in Sri Lanka, folks, the PM and president have run away from the fight. It sounds funny if you're not paying attention, but it's true. They actually just got up and ran away. They owe 50 billion in debt, the country that is, and they need to clear 28 billion by 2027. A minimum of 28 billion, otherwise they basically just sink completely. There'll be like nothing left. So let's talk to international financial advisor Dr. R.U. Kutty, who is being consulted by what's left of the Sri Lankan administration. And he's right here with us. He's a very busy man. Mr. R.U. Kutty?
That's my name.
I see. Great opening, sir. Great opening. I love that. Let's start at the top now. Is there any hope for Sri Lanka?
Is there a hope for Uddhav in Maharashtra or Congress at the center?
I don't know.
Then that's your answer.
Okay, but now let's go from the top to the bottom.
But young man, I did that by appearing on your show.
Right. So comedy we've got. We're getting no answers, but we've got comedy. True. Now, are you Kutti?
That's me. That's my name.
No. Just let me complete. Are you Kutti?
That's my name. That's me.
This guy just... Can you just behave yourself, sir? Please, sir. How did it get so bad for Sri Lanka? Give us an understanding of why it went wrong.
See, I'll tell you. You owe 10 rupees.
Yes.
Then you borrow 10 rupees to pay off the first 10 rupees.
I owe 10 rupees, so I borrow 10 rupees.
But now, you owe the initial guy 12 rupees because of the compound interest. So you pay off 10, still owe 2 to him. Plus, another 10 to second guy. Meanwhile, both sums compound further and become...
This is getting very scary.
So now, you owe 5 to the first guy and 13 to the second guy. So you borrow 10 from the third guy.
Okay. Please stop. This show is painful enough as it is. Don't do this calculation. Please stop.
So they reach a point of 50 billion plus in debt and growing.
Is that so?
And can you believe it all started from borrowing just 10 rupees?
I don't think that's true. In fact, I feel really bad.
Good evening, welcome to News Blitz. Heavy rainfall wreaked havoc in several parts of Kerala. The Alua Mahadeva temple, which is situated on the banks of the Periyar River in Kochi, submerged underwater. The water level has increased significantly in the Periyar River following incessant rains. The rural areas of Kozhikode, Malappuram and Kannur districts witnessed massive waterlogging and landslides. The Shrikhand Mahadev Yatra has been affected because of extremely heavy rainfall. The rains triggered landslides in parts of Kulu as well as nearby areas. The Shrikhand Mahadev Yatra is one of the toughest religious pilgrimages in the world. Many glaciers have to be crossed to see Bholenath at an altitude of over 18,000 feet. Several animals and birds were rescued after a flood-like situation arose in Navsari district in Gujarat. Rescue teams also provided food to the animals that were stranded in the flood-affected areas. Several NDRF teams have also been deployed across Gujarat for rescue operations. Delhi sighed a breath of relief today as parts of the city received rainfall. The Met Department has predicted strong winds of up to 30 to 40 kilometers per hour. Cloudy skies and very light rainfall are also on the forecast for Delhi on Sunday as well. Very light or light rainfall could persist from the 19th of July to the 22nd. The monsoon mayhem in Maharashtra continues. It's claimed over 100 lives since the 1st of June. The State Disaster Management Department has said that 2 deaths have been reported in the last 24 hours because of rain and flood-related incidents. Amid incessant heavy rainfall in Doda district in Jammu and Kashmir, the water level in the Chenab has increased pretty dramatically. The government has issued a red alert in the low-lying areas of the Union Territory. Once again, because of heavy rains, the Amarnath Yatra has been stopped from both sides. The main route will now be examined, and if found not slippery, only then will the pilgrims be allowed to continue with their yatra. As part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebration, the Jammu and Kashmir government has formed a high-level committee to implement the recent decisions taken on the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign. While the move was welcomed by the BJP, the PDP has called it a childish move.
महबूबा मुफ्ती बार बार भारतीय झंडे को लेकर के जो आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव मनाया जा रहा है उस पर सवाल खड़े करते हैं। तिरंगे की बेइज्जती करना इनका शुरू से काम रहा है। 70 साल इन्होंने उस झंडे को प्रायोरिटी दी जिसके कारण से अलगाववाद, आतंकवाद और परिवारवाद ये सब चीज़ें चलती रही।
Yet another distraction move of the government. The government never wants to address the main issues: unemployment, poverty, other hostile issues facing the country, the common man. They keep on distracting, they keep on generating controversy out of nothing, out of no issues.
A Pakistani woman was nabbed on the Chakandabag line of control in Poonch by security forces. The infiltrator was nabbed in the forward sector where attempts to trespass the border took place a few days ago. The woman, in fact, was handed over to the J&K police. The Srinagar police have stopped 5 youths from joining terror ranks in Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, all 5 were planning to go to Pakistan for weapons training in Lashkar-e-Taiba run camps. Sections 13, 18 and 18B of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act has been invoked against them, as well as the recruiters, about the whole conspiracy. In order to revive the dying Kashmiri art form of paper march, Shafia Bashir, an artist from Srinagar's Lal Bazaar, has started making paper march designs on things like Kashmiri Kangri. Shafia says that she's got very good response from all over the world for the revival of this cultural act, and people now are appreciative and supportive of her initiative. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today inaugurated the 296-kilometre-long Bundelkhand Expressway. The expressway was built at a cost of 14,850 crores. This 4-lane expressway will pass through 7 UP districts. The foundation stone for this expressway was laid by the Prime Minister in 2020, and the project has been completed in a record span of just 28 months.
आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के कर कमलों से 296 किलोमीटर लंबे इस एक्सप्रेसवे का उद्घाटन होने जा रहा है। यह बुंदेलखंड की अर्थव्यवस्था को और उत्तर प्रदेश की अर्थव्यवस्था को एक नया आयाम प्रदान करेगा।
ये एक्सप्रेसवे बुंदेलखंड की गौरवशाली परंपरा को समर्पित है। योगी जी के नेतृत्व वाली सरकार में कानून व्यवस्था भी सुधरी है और कनेक्टिविटी भी तेज से सुधर रही है।
Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav has taken a dig at the Uttar Pradesh government on the Bundelkhand Expressway project. He shared a video of the under-construction expressway on Twitter and asked, what is the hurry to inaugurate it even before completion? The Gujarat Special Investigation Team has made a massive claim that Teesta Setalvad received a Padma Shri for her attempts to conspire against the then Modi government. The SIT has been investigating Setalvad on charges of fabrication of evidence and conspiracy linked to the 2002 Gujarat riots. After the Gujarat SIT's shocking revelations about Teesta Setalvad, BJP spokesperson Sambit Patra took a jibe at the Congress and its leader Sonia Gandhi. He said that Teesta Setalvad was working to destroy the then Gujarat government and wanted to defame the entire state. He also said that Sonia Gandhi, through Ahmed Patel, tried to destroy the then Chief Minister Narendra Modi.
अहमद पटेल जी के माध्यम से सोनिया जी ने नरेंद्र मोदी जी को घेरने की चेष्टा की, उन्हें अपमानित और उन्हें किस प्रकार से निष्कासित किया जाए इसकी चेष्टा की, और ये पूरे षड्यंत्र की रचयिता सोनिया गांधी है। 30 लाख का पहला किस्त सोनिया गांधी जी ने तीस्ता सेतलवाड को दिया। अहमद पटेल जी हमारे बीच में नहीं है, अहमद पटेल जी ने तो केवल डिलीवर किया।
After Sambit Patra slammed the Congress, Congress leader Pawan Kheda countered the BJP, stoking a controversy because elections are approaching in Gujarat. He also alleged that the SIT chief, who had given the clean sheet to then Chief Minister Modi, was made an ambassador subsequently after years of retirement.
जब भी गुजरात का चुनाव आता है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी, नरेंद्र मोदी जी और उनका जो इकोसिस्टम है, वो नए नए थ्योरी सामने लाता है। हर बार गुजरात चुनाव जब आता है तो कभी अंसारी जी का नाम लेकर शुरू हो जाएंगे, कभी स्वर्गीय अहमद पटेल जी का नाम लेकर शुरू हो जाएंगे। हर बार चुनाव आता है तो आप कभी किसी मुस्लिम नेता का नाम जरूर लाएंगे। कांग्रेस पार्टी इस तरह की राजनीति में विश्वास नहीं रखती।
A day after the Lulu Mall controversy in Lucknow, another video of a man offering namaz has emerged where he can be seen offering the namaz on a platform number 3 in the Charbagh station in Lucknow. The video has been doing the rounds of social media since then. Members of the All India Hindu Mahasabha have protested and registered a complaint regarding the same.
स्टेशन पे जिस प्रकार से परसों वहाँ पर नमाज पढ़ी गई जिसका वीडियो वायरल हुआ है, तो उसको लेकर हमारा ये कहना है कि उनको पकड़ा जाए, चिन्हित किया जाए। उसके अलावा वहाँ पर जो मज़ार बनी है, मज़ार की आड़ में बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठियों का पनाहगाह बन गई है वो मज़ार, और रेलवे का आर्थिक नुकसान भी हो रहा है। ये जल्द से जल्द इस पर कार्रवाई करें।
Another fresh controversy has erupted in West Bengal, where posters calling Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee anti-tribal have been put up by the BJP. The poster also shows NDA's presidential candidate Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Modi. TMC leader Sukhendu Shekhar Roy, in an address, called out the BJP for misleading people by spreading falsehood.
बीजेपी कुछ नहीं कर पा रहा, भ्रम तैयार करना चाहते हैं आदिवासियों की मन में कि तृणमूल कांग्रेस के साथ मत जाओ, लेकिन वो लोग आदिवासी लोग जानते हैं कि ममता बनर्जी का जो कर्मसूची प्रगति का, जिसके कारण उनको पिछले दिनों से ज़्यादा प्रगति हुआ है, वो ममता बनर्जी का नेतृत्व में ही काम करेगा और काम कर रहा है।
After the key BJP meeting, Jagdeep Dhankar has been nominated by the NDA for the post of Vice President. The nomination will be filed on the 19th of July, and the election for Vice President is scheduled to take place on the 6th of August.
सभी नामों पर गौर करने के बाद हम सब लोग और भारतीय जनता पार्टी की संसदीय बोर्ड इस निष्कर्ष पर पहुंची है कि उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी और एनडीए के प्रत्याशी के रूप में हमारे किसान पुत्र श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी को हम उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए अपना प्रत्याशी के रूप में घोषित करते हैं।
4 people have been arrested in connection with the Patna terror module, while 3 were arrested Thursday. The cops have arrested another one last evening, and they've found Pakistani links in this case. The police have also found that the accused was operating through WhatsApp groups. He was also a member of Ghazwa-e-Hind.
कल एक और महत्वपूर्ण गिरफ्तारी हुई है। जो गिरफ्तार अभियुक्त है उसका नाम है मरगूब अहमद दानिश। एक ऐसा नंबर पता चला था जिसमें बहुत ही आपत्तिजनक पोस्ट, राष्ट्र विरोधी वीडियोस, नारे इत्यादि उनका प्रचार और प्रसार किया जा रहा था। ये व्यक्ति गज़वा हिंद नाम का संस्था के साथ जुड़ा हुआ था।
Ahead of the monsoon session of Parliament, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla chaired a meeting with leaders of all political parties. Birla briefed them on the preparations related to the session, which is all set to begin on the 18th of July. And ahead of the Parliament monsoon session, an advisory has been sent to members from refraining from distribution of any pamphlets, leaflets or placards inside the House. This advisory comes at a time when opposition parties created a huge furor over the advisory on demonstrations and dharnas inside Parliament complex. TMC MP Jawahar Sarkar has written to Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri regarding the makeover of the Ashok Stamb. Sarkar has urged the minister to undertake computerized checks to rectify distortions in the national emblem that is now perched on top of the new Parliament building. He also goes on to say that the national emblem is not an area where human error or artistic licenses can be permitted. In the Udaipur murder case, the NIA court has sent 3 accused to judicial custody. The sentence has been announced for Ghosh Mohammed, Riyaz Atari and Farhad Mohammed. After the remand period ends, they were in fact presented today in court. Remember, Kanhaiya Lal was killed on the 28th of June for supporting former BJP spokesperson Nupur Shah. The 16th round of the India-China military talks will be held on Sunday on the Indian side of the LAC in eastern Ladakh. India has been pressing for progress in overall bilateral ties and for quick disengagement of troops from all the remaining friction points in eastern Ladakh. After Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Rewadi culture jibe, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal hit out. Kejriwal said that giving free education and free health treatment to people is not distributing freebies. It is an act of virtue, and it's called laying the foundation for the future generations of this country.
मुझ पर आरोप लगाए जा रहे हैं कि केजरीवाल फ्री की रेवड़ियां बांट रहा है, केजरीवाल फ्रीबीज दे रहा है। मैं लोगों से पूछना चाहता हूं कि क्या मैं फ्री की रेवड़ियां बांट रहा हूं या देश की नींव रख रहा हूं? अगर मैं इन बच्चों को अच्छी शानदार शिक्षा दे रहा हूं लेकिन फ्री में दे रहा हूं तो मैं क्या गुनाह कर रहा हूं?
An Uttar Pradesh court has rejected the bail petition of Alt News co-founder Mohammed Zubair in connection with an FIR that was lodged against him for saying something in 2021 which allegedly promoted enmity among communities. Earlier on Friday, Delhi's Patiala House Court granted him bail in a case related to an allegedly objectionable tweet. India reported a little over 20,000 new COVID cases and 56 deaths in the last 24 hours. Active cases now comprise 0.32% of total infections, while the national COVID-19 recovery rate was 98.48%. The daily positivity rate was recorded at 8.4%. Former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister O. Selvam, who's tested positive for COVID yesterday, has now been admitted to a private hospital in Chennai for further treatment. A central team has visited Kerala after a case of monkeypox was detected in the state. The central team met with health department officials regarding the case. The team will also visit Kollam district, from where the patient is currently admitted.
People watch your show?
No, yeah, 2-3 people who don't know
don't
that
know.
you,
Achha, okay.
they all know your trivia. Na? We
Achha,
all
achha.
know trivia about you.
Point.
We all know too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your question though?
That you signed this on before KGF, before Bahubali, no, before RRR, after Bahubali. So were you prescient? Did you know that this is the kind of film Indian audiences are going to like?
Unfortunately, I didn't write the film, so so actually he was someone who was, I guess, above.
Ekta and me.
Yeah.
Ekta and him were ahead of the curve. But at the time that it came to me, it seemed very exciting. I felt very lucky to be offered a film like this. Yeah, and here we are sitting about the film, very excited. 22nd July the film releases, and the 2-3 people who don't know that it's a action entertainer, it's a badass entertaining film, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Don't try to wrap up just yet.
क्यों हो गया? पीछे से बोले ना?
No one is saying. No one is saying. Lio is just.
He's playing with your psyche all along.
Does he do this on sets as well?
No,
do you
no,
guys
no.
feel very demotivated when you go home?
See, I've realized
What is happening?
I wake up motivated.
Okay. And then you meet Ranbir.
Yeah. I'm fine.
See,
He's been demotivating me since
Every time
morning.
you do interviews, you always ask the masti-khor questions. So when I'm allowed to do masti, why only you're allowed?
That's fine. That's fine. But don't pretend on sets. You're like very disciplined,
Why
very
do I have to
sweet,
pretend?
introvert.
Have you been on my set?
You're very disciplined on your set.
I don't know. Ask them. Am I?
Yeah.
He's very disciplined. No, genuinely he is. Genuinely.
Above.
It's a shocking transition that happens.
Okay, fine. It's a question I asked. Good to know.
She doesn't want to receive the answer, but she's living with it.
Okay. And as a co-star, he's okay.
Yeah, just about okay.
Just about okay.
He manages.
Manages. We manage. We jail him.
We sail through.
I know you did Kathak for this film. You prepared for this film.
I did.
What
Few
about you?
sessions.
You prepared?
I prepared falling down in a chair. For 6 months, I was just falling down chairs.
It's a larger than life role, and you're so real.
No,
You're
let's. I mean,
too real.
on a serious note, this film came with a lot of challenges because it's a part which I've never done in my life. In the 15-year career that I've had, I'm playing 2 characters, Shamshera and Obali. It was a character which was filled with angst. It's something which angst doesn't naturally come from me, and Karan's one requirement for this part was at the very onset of this film, he said that I need you to be angry. Do you get angry? And when I told him no, I don't get angry, his face had broken. He's like, you don't get angry, so how are you going to do this part? So I had to take a lot of help from Karan. He had to channelize him a lot because he is someone who has a lot of angst. And I think that really helped in portraying both these parts.
I don't feel you would be angry, but I feel like you're a little angsty. You can be angsty, no? A little about life, the bigger question
No, but
of life.
I don't know. Nobody's complained yet.
Okay.
Except you.
It's a good thing.
It
Your
is a good thing,
characters have so much angst. Like in Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, you're so angsty.
Yeah, but those are all soul searching, and the villain was me only.
Welcome back. The Indian High Commissioner called on the Sri Lankan speaker today. According to a tweet, India appreciated the parliament's role in upholding democracy and constitutional framework, particularly at this crucial juncture. India has also conveyed that it will be continuing to be supportive of democracy, stability and economic recovery in Sri Lanka. The President of Sri Lanka is scheduled to be elected by Parliament on the 20th of July to complete the remainder of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's term after he resigned on the 14th of July. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is the acting president, Sri Lankan MP Peruma and opposition leader Sajith Premadasa are in the fray to run for the president's post.
Our party is SJB and we have an alliance, SJB alliance. This is the main opposition party. Parliamentary representation is lopsided. it does not reflect the aspirations of the people of the country. Because today, the Rajapaksa ideology is a failed ideology. The majority that was attained in 2020 will be deciding on the future presidency.
More trouble mounts for Gotabaya as Singapore is not keen on keeping him for long. Sources have told CNN News 18 that Singapore is unlikely to extend Gotabaya Rajapaksa's permission to stay beyond 15 days.
People were suffering for food, water, gas, electricity and everything. They couldn't alleviate any of those things.
We are actually informing people, educating people on why why parliamentarians shouldn't support Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Driving for from the get-go, but then that being said, it isn't the ultimate goal per se, so I think it's a little too early to do a victory lap celebration and all the rest of it.
China's workers face the economic pains from zero COVID as the country is also reporting its worst quarterly performance in 2 years.
China's zero COVID policy has inflicted devastating economic pain across the country. The policy has brought the cities to a grinding halt. There are people who haven't been able to access their own savings since April.
Was that your life savings?
Yeah, for sure. I worked almost 10 years and that's all I have with my family. I'm losing my weight, I'm losing my, my mind.
Just in June, massive protests broke out at the government building for 5 straight days, for more than 12 hours a day, only to be quashed by the cops violently. Local authorities later promised to start giving small payments to some such depositors. But still, there is no clear policy with people left in lurch.
New York's chief medical examiner has said that Donald Trump's first wife, Ivana Trump, died of blunt impact injuries to her torso. According to US media reports, the police are investigating if she died after falling down the stairs, as the circumstances of her death have not been specified. Russia has once again stepped up its onslaught against Ukraine, with civilian casualties reported in several areas of the country. At least 3 civilians were killed and 3 more injured in Russian rocket strike in the northern city of Chuhaiv, which lies about 120 kilometers from the Russia border. North Korea today slammed Ukraine for severing diplomatic ties between the two nations after Pyongyang said that it was formally recognizing 2 self-proclaimed pro-Russia republics in the east of the country. This came after Ukraine had cut off its official relationship with the nuclear-armed state in response to Pyongyang recognizing the so-called Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. As the race to become Britain's next Prime Minister gains pace, caretaker Prime Minister Boris Johnson has reportedly told his allies to back anyone but Rishi Sunak. Now, this is according to a media report. Johnson, who resigned as the leader of the ruling Conservative Party on the 7th of July, has been urging defeated Tory leadership candidates not to back former Chancellor Sunak. The US House of Representatives adopted 2 bills aimed at protecting access to abortion after the Supreme Court ruled that individual states can either ban or restrict abortion. The legislation passed by the Democratic-controlled House is unlikely to advance in the Senate, where 10 Republican votes would be needed to bring the measures to the floor. US President Joe Biden has met with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, on the attacks on dissidents during his visit to Saudi Arabia. In fact, Prince MBS drew global outrage for the 2018 killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the kingdom's Istanbul consulate. This was through an operation that the US intelligence services said he approved. Saudi citizens will soon be able to obtain 10-year visitor visas in an agreement during US President Joe Biden's visit to Saudi Arabia. Under the agreement, the validity of visitor visas for Saudi citizens extends from 5 years to 10 years as of 1st of August. Biden is on a 2-day visit to Saudi Arabia that began Friday with a meeting with King Salman. At least 6 people are dead in the US state of Montana after a windstorm caused 20 vehicles to crash together on the highway. The storm's heavy winds and zero visibility are believed to have contributed to the crash. The Montana Highway Patrol is investigating the incident and is expected to release more information. The BCCI has moved the Supreme Court seeking to amend its constitution with regard to the tenure of its office bearers, including President Saurav Ganguly and Secretary Jay Shah. The BCCI, during an AGM in December of 2019, had proposed 6 amendments which had barred the BCCI and state board office bearers from holding office for more than 6 consecutive years. The second ODI between India and England was a star-studded affair with the likes of Sachin Tendulkar, Saurav Ganguly, MS Dhoni and Suresh Raina in attendance. A day after the game, Master Blaster Tendulkar shared a photograph with West Indies legend Sir Garfield Sobers on Twitter. Manchester United has signed Christian Eriksen as a free agent on a 3-year deal. The 30-year-old switch to the Red Devils completes an incredible return after his brush with death last year. Eriksen suffered a cardiac arrest on the pitch in Copenhagen while playing for Denmark at the European Championship. He was forced to leave Inter Milan after recovering due to a Serie A health breakthrough. Biologists have tracked the last dolphin pod in Rio de Janeiro's Bay. Researchers say that the last pod of dolphins in the Guanabara Bay show some signs of recovery, where once thousands roamed through the rich fishing grounds offshore Rio, but falling victim to pollution and overfishing. The Academy Museum is all set to honor Julia Roberts at the second annual gala in October. The Oscar winner will be presented with the Icon Award in recognition of the significant global cultural impact of her career. Roberts won an Oscar in 2000 for her leading role in Erin Brockovich. Actor Julianne Moore has been selected to serve as president of the main competition jury for the Venice International Film Festival. The Oscar-winning actor will preside over a jury that includes French director Audrey Diwan, author Kazuo Ishiguro, and Iranian actor Leila Hatami. A video of a little girl touching the feet of a soldier has gone viral on social media. The video shows the little girl running towards a group of soldiers. One of the soldiers then bends to interact with her when she sits down to touch his feet to take blessings. The soldier, moved by the girl's gesture, shows her affection. People on social media are sharing the video with the caption, "Raising patriotic young minds is a duty every parent owes to this great nation." That's a wrap. Thanks for your time.
One day said to me and Ishan, he said all of the best acting is acting that happens by mistake. वो जो गलती से हो जाता है ना, वहाँ ही जादू होता है.
When you sit down with your father, Mr. Boni Kapoor, what are the conversations that you have now? Now that you're into the film industry, you're reading scripts, and your father has been the producer. Recently, Salman made a statement that, you know, मेरे career में जब बहुत बुरा वक्त था तो बोनी कपूर ने मुझे उठाया था. So, as a professional now, what are the conversations that you're having with a professional like him?
I think that a lot of creative discussions. We love watching movies, discussing movies. I love telling him about how my day's been on set. And he has इतना wisdom है उनके पास, उसने इतना कुछ देखा है अपनी ज़िंदगी में, इतना कुछ किया है कि वो ज्ञान बांटने के लिए हमेशा तैयार रहते हैं. और उनकी कहानी आपको एक बार सुननी चाहिए, बिकॉज ही सीन इट ऑल एंड ही इज़ डन इट ऑल. तो कई बार मैं बस बैठ के सुनती हूँ और उनको बात करने का बहुत शौक है, स्पेशली जब वो अपने दोस्तों के साथ बैठते हैं, रूमी सर, जावेद साहब, शबाना मैम, और उनके जो किस्से हैं वो मतलब आप सुन के चौंक जाओगे कि ऐसे भी फिल्म्स बनते थे, ये फिल्म ऐसी बनी थी, ये इसके वक्त ये हो रहा था. सो देयर इज सो मच टू लर्न. ही इज बीन अ प्रोड्यूसर. मैंने देखा है कि जब एक्टर्स प्रोड्यूसर्स की ज़िंदगी थोड़ा मुश्किल करते हैं, डिमांड्स करते हैं, ये वो करते हैं, कि प्रोड्यूसर पे क्या प्रेशर्स होती हैं. सो आई try in whatever way I can to make it as easy as possible.
Wonderful. When I read about you, newspapers and websites and social media, sometimes I think you are under too much pressure of just looking good. Do you ever feel that thing that just people are a little judgmental of looks, especially women?
I do feel like that. I don't just think वो हमारी industry की problem है या हमारी gender की problem है. I think social media के बदौलत वो हर इंसान की प्रॉब्लम हो गई है कि वो जो
the filters and
no जो मतलब एक्सटर्नल चीज़ें जो हैं, दिखावट जो है, वो बहुत ज़रूरी हो गया लोगों के लिए. और उस चीज़ से मुझे डर लगने लगा कि हाँ, ऑफ कोर्स मुझे ड्रेसअप करने में, मेकअप, हेयर सब करने में, इवेंट्स के लिए जाने में, फ़ोटोज़ पोस्ट करने में बहुत मज़ा आता है. लेकिन अगर वो एक इंसान की ज़िंदगी बन जाती है तो वो बहुत डरावना हो जाता है. So you need to know when to switch off. Even when I'm getting papped, wherever I'm getting papped, if I'm in a good mood and I'm feeling good, I think I'm pretty chirpy. But there are days where I'm just like, I don't know, my stomach's hurting, but I had to go to the gym because I have to look good for an event, or because I'm losing weight for a role and then I have to do training after, and like someone just told me that the film I wanted to do is now happening with someone, and like you're having a shitty day and then there are paps saying, Janvi ma'am, yahan turn karke wave kijiye please, and you know that your tights are too tight and this won't look flattering, and people will say that, oh ye janbujh ke aise kapde pehen rahi, and all of these thoughts rush in your head in a matter of seconds, and then it shows on your face.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they say कि इतनी खड़ूस है, hi भी नहीं बोल सकती है. So you can't care about these things.
Yeah, you've got into several roles like this.
Hello, welcome to the Super Saturday Debate, a special investigation team that is probing the role of Teesta Setalvad in forming a conspiracy after the Gujarat 2002 riots has claimed that she deliberately did so to implicate the then Gujarat Chief Minister Narendra Modi. The SIT also startlingly claims that she was doing all of this at the behest of Ahmed Patel, the long-time political secretary of Sonia Gandhi. The Congress and Mr. Patel's family have dismissed these claims. The question, though, is, was Teesta being financially compensated for this work, and was she doing this to try and implicate the then Chief Minister of Gujarat as well as the ruling party? Was she doing this for political purposes?
उस समय जो राज्य की सरकार थी गुजरात में, किस प्रकार से उसे बर्खास्त किया जाए और उसे अस्थिर बनाया जाए, यह प्रथम राजनीतिक मनसा, यह प्रथम पॉलिटिकल ऑब्जेक्टिव तीस्ता सेतलवाड और उनके मित्रों का था, उनके साथियों का था. अहमद पटेल तो मात्र एक नाम है. ही इज जस्ट अ नेम. द ड्राइविंग फोर्स बिहाइंड अहमद पटेल वॉज हिज बॉस सोनिया गांधी.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी, नरेंद्र मोदी जी और उनका जो इकोसिस्टम है, वो नए नए थ्योरी सामने लाता है. हर बार गुजरात चुनाव जब आता है तो कभी अंसारी जी का नाम लेकर शुरू हो जाएंगे, कभी स्वर्गीय अहमद पटेल जी का नाम लेकर शुरू हो जाएंगे. हर बार चुनाव आता है तो आप कभी किसी मुस्लिम नेता का नाम जरूर लाएंगे.
All right, so what exactly has the SIT said? Remember, they've said this in an affidavit before a court in Ahmedabad. Let me bring you up to speed with some of these damning findings that the SIT has said. Number one, it says that this was a conspiracy that was hatched at the behest of late Ahmed Patel, who was political secretary to Sonia Gandhi. The affidavit goes on to say that the plot involves Teesta Setalvad and former cops R.B. Srikumar, who was ADG of police at that time, and Sanjeev Bhatt, who was with the state intelligence at that time. Setalvad held multiple meetings with Ahmed Patel just days after the Godhra incident, which happened on 27 February 2002. Ahmed Patel, it is alleged in this affidavit, gave Setalvad money, first through a witness person, 5 lakh rupees, and then 25 lakh rupees in 2 different installments for supposedly relief work, but then that relief work was not routed through the centralized Gujarat Relief Committee. The affidavit goes on to say the SIT's finding is there was a larger political objective, one which was to destabilize the then state government of Gujarat and the chief minister at that time, Narendra Modi. Let me go across to our guests who are joining us on the Super Saturday Debate. Shehzad Poonawala, spokesperson of the BJP, Swapnil Kothari, lawyer, joining us, Ajay Umat, senior journalist, and Tausif Ahmed Khan, advocate and political analyst, also joining us. Shehzad, I'll start with you first. Pretty damning findings this in the SIT, but you heard from the Congress's spokesperson, Mr. Kheda, a moment ago. He is saying that all of this is being done just before the Gujarat election.
You see, whatever has been disclosed by the SIT, if I was to summarize it, Zaka, it becomes that Congress and Sonia were the mukhya kirdar, Miss Teesta Setalvad was the kalakar, and Ahmed Patel was merely the sutradhar. He was the Mohra, but behind the Mohra, the hand was of Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. And there was a 4D conspiracy. The conspiracy to defame the people of Gujarat, the conspiracy to divide the people of India on communal lines, the conspiracy to destabilize the Gujarat government and elected government, and the conspiracy to dismiss the Gujarat government. And this 4D conspiracy was done by 2G, one Rahul ji and one Sonia ji. And it is not just the SIT. The SIT has made a submission before the court. But here is what the Supreme Court has said. For 16 years, the pot was kept boiling to sensationalize and politicize. It was a nexus of people like Sitarwad, Sanjeev Bhatt and R.B. Sri Kumar who fabricated evidence. They tutored witnesses. They emotionally exploited Zakia Jafri. That this was a vindictive persuasion. Therefore, I call it not public interest litigation. It was a paisa interest litigation. 30 lakhs was exchanged. It was a prayojit interest litigation. There was Padma Shri being rewarded. There was talk of Rajya Sabha. And it was an entire political interest litigation only done to target Narendra Modi. But in the attempt to target Narendra Modi ji, they targeted the people of Gujarat. And therefore, today, Congress party is so ashamed they are not even coming on TV panels.
No, so I want to make that official that the Congress party has said that they are not going to be taking part in debates on this issue. But I want to go across to Tausif Ahmed Khan. Tausif, look at what the SIT is saying, and I'll read from it. The political objective of the applicant, in this case Teesta Setalwad, while enacting this larger conspiracy, was the dismissal or the destabilization of the elected government of Gujarat by hook or crook, for which the applicant had obtained illegal financial as well as other benefits from the rival political party in lieu of her attempts to wrongly implicate many persons, including then Chief Minister of Gujarat. It can't be more damning than this.
Zaka, the charge is that BJP state government of Gujarat was under threat and that there was an attempt to destabilize or dismiss that government. But we all saw that post Godhra, none of the BJP government fell. There was no destabilization, there was no dismissal of BJP government post Godhra. But BJP, on the contrary, is responsible for the horse trading, for destabilizing, for dismissing governments, elected governments in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh, in Karnataka, and they are carrying on with their attempt.
Tausif, that's a different. That's a different matter altogether. I'm asking a simple question. The SIT is saying, and you're free to dismiss those claims, but the SIT is saying that there were multiple meetings that Setalwad had with Congress leader Ahmed Patel, including in Ahmedabad. She was first given 5 lakh rupees in the first instance by one witness on the instructions of Mr. Patel, and subsequently she was given 25 lakh rupees. Now, I want to know, what is your position on this?
No, the BJP must clarify where did they get all the money from to put those MLAs they took away from Maharashtra. They were lodged in Assam 5-star hotel. Where were they getting all these money from?
But Tausif, what has that got to do with Teesta Setalwad?
And
what has that got to do with
manufactured story?
What has that got to do? What has that got to do with the money that allegedly was paid off to Teesta Setalwad by Ahmed Patel?
Because these are all concocted, fabricated, manufactured theories that BJP themselves are doing in practice, and then using this practical experience to concoct a story and to blame Teesta Setalwad.
For what?
And
come
up with these
what
materials.
do they gain out of it? Anyway, Swapnil Kothari, I want to read one more portion of that affidavit that's been filed. This is from the SIT. This is in her bail matter. It says, and I quote,
and the SIT chief was rewarded.
That is a different SIT. That's a different SIT. That is the Supreme Court appointed SIT. Mr. Raghavan, the former CBI director, was the head of that SIT. This is a different SIT.
Yes, the one who gave the clean sheet to the so-called chief minister.
Let's have our facts at least correct. That's a different SIT. This is a different one. But let me read this, Swapnil.
Swapnil,
once again, Tausif, please, I'm lowering your fader. Swapnil. 2 days later, in a meeting conducted in the Government Circuit House in Shahibag between late Shri Ahmed Patel and applicant Teesta, by this said witness, had handed over 25 lakh rupees more to the applicant on the instructions of late Ahmed Patel. Now, here is the interesting part. This cash money was given to the applicant. It was not part of any relief related, because all relief material was coming through a centralized Gujarat Relief Committee. So then why was Setalwad getting this amount of money as is being alleged by the SIT?
Well, Zaka, the answer is very clear. Obviously, there was some ulterior motive behind giving this huge amount of cash to Teesta Setalwad. And if the Gujarat, if the prosecution proves that this was actually the case with appropriate witnesses being put in the box and with some further evidence, in addition to buttressing what they have said in the affidavit, then I'm sure that the defense will have a tough time getting the bail for Teesta on Monday. I believe the bail application is there on Monday, up for hearing. So this is very, very clear that the Supreme Court has perforated through the defense at that time itself when they made that statement. Very, very bold statement the Supreme Court made very openly. Usually the court shies away from making these kind of observations, but it did so. That means it was extremely exasperated at that, and obviously all of these evidences that you pointed out must be there before them. And they have said that 16 years is too long. And all of this seems to be a perfect conspiracy to nail the then chief minister, and then continuing this for so long. That is the reason why they came out with what they came out, those strong observations, which further led to, more trouble for Teesta Setalwad. And I don't see those.
No, but how do you respond to what the Congress is saying, that these are mere allegations by the SIT? The SIT, of course, is appointed by the state government. This is an attempt to whitewash.
Well, Congress is used to making those kind of statements, especially when, a celebrity's son gets arrested. Then we all say that it's political maneuvering.
Okay.
Then when Teesta Setalwad gets arrested, it's witch hunt.
Shameless.
Then
Lanka is shameless.
and all of those things. But I don't want to get into what Congress has to say. They're entitled to say what they wish to say.
Okay.
And I'm not here for any party.
Okay.
I'm here for the fact that if there's a
One
fact,
second, Tausif, one second.
there.
Ajay Umart is also
For
waiting
giving
after.
a clean
One second, I want to go to Ajay Umart. He's been waiting
SIT
patiently.
chief is
One
rewarded
thing,
for the
Ajay
diplomatic
Umart. One
assignment.
second, Tausif, please. All right, we don't have Ajay Umart. Okay, let me bring in Shehzad then. Again, the role
Please
of.
ask this question.
One second. I will. Let me ask the question, please. Sir, please.
Was rewarded with a diplomatic assignment.
Let me ask the questions. Thank you. The SIT has also told court that Teesta's meetings with two police persons, Mr. R.B. Srikumar, then ADGP, and Mr. Sanjeev Bhatt, who was the DCI of the State Intelligence Bureau, both of whom had no work pertaining to relief work post the 2002 riots. So why was she meeting them then?
Exactly. And Zaka, this is still an SIT Gujarat which has submitted something on affidavit, which is anyways considered, if they lie, they have to pay a penalty. But let's leave this aside. I am going to the Supreme Court verdict, and I want to just read out one line from there. Mr. R.B. Srikumar, in the later affidavits commenting about the functioning of the administration, must be viewed in the context of his denial of career opportunities. Before that, it says about Teesta Setalwad, for reasons best known to her and out of vengeance, was interested in continuing with her tirade and persecution on the basis of unsubstantiated allegations in the complaint, in the name of the quest for justice, with a real purpose to keep the pot boiling and to politicize the crime. Apart from that, in the Sanjeev Bhatt Supreme Court case, Supreme Court says that this entire is an attempt to influence the court through politics and activism with rival political parties. This is also in Supreme Court. Then there was one so-called favorite journalist of these people. Her favorite book of that favorite journalist was dismissed by saying by the Supreme Court that it has no evidentiary value whatsoever. Finally, let's come to the SIT Gujarat. Now, the SIT Gujarat says a very important thing. In the Haren Pandya case, she lands up, tries to tell the father of Haren Pandya, please sign this. And he says no, because there were innocent people trying to be implicated. Mr. Tausif may have 10 problems with me, but the fact of the matter is that the original SIT, which was constituted by Supreme Court, its closure report was confirmed by trial court, by High Court, by Supreme Court. The Gujarat government said, go ahead and make the SIT, we have no objections. So how can you now today come and say that the Supreme Court is also fixed? This is point number one. Point number two. Today, the Congress party must tell us that the Teesta files have opened up. I'll tell you some more payouts that were done. She was given funds from the central ministry by Kapil Sibal by breaking the rules. The MHRD gave her funds for that. She was given other funds which was taken in the name of Gujarat riot victims, that she misused it for champagne and chocolates. There's a case going on to that as well.
No,
she tutored witnesses, Nanumia Malik, Kausar Banu case, and then even Rais Khan has come out and said...
affidavit also says that she was rewarded with the Padma Shri in lieu of what she was doing in the 2002 Gujarat riots.
Just one line, if I may just have one last line. Zaka, today I want an answer. Rahul Gandhi in 2014 said that Mr. Modi is responsible for 2002 riots. None of that is true. Today he should be on this debate, or his representatives, and they should tell us what they're trying to orchestrate this propaganda.
But Tausif, you're a lawyer, so please tell me, when the SIT says that there was blatant fabrication and forgery of documents by persons who were to be prospective witnesses of the complainant, Basically, they are saying it's a fabrication of documents and evidences, but also of influencing and tutoring witnesses and making them depose on pre-typed affidavits. You as a lawyer know that that is a crime.
Gujarat train burning is also the conspiracy theory of behind Gujarat train burning is also a fabrication declared by another finding by the another SIT of Justice Banerjee. What are you talking about? Today, Mr. Modi is still haunted by the ghost of Gujarat riots, by the ghost of the people who are killed in Gujarat, and still he wants, now it's been so many years, decades, but still it is haunting him and he wants a clean sheet from the government. That is
The
why
haunting is
time and
only in your
again.
mind. The courts have said no such thing.
Sir,
And
but
by the way,
the clean sheet has come already from the Supreme Court.
no, 3 levels of
Clean
court. But
sheet
by the
never
way,
came from
the
Supreme Court,
Delhi
please.
riots, 1984
No.
riots, the Delhi High Court
SIT
held the government of that time
Supreme
responsible.
Court
He has
did
not a word to offer
go
about
in
that.
trial of any of the riot cases of Gujarat. So Supreme Court never conducted trial of any Gujarat riot cases. So please do not say
Sir,
clean sheet has come from
Zakia
Supreme Court.
Jaffrey's petition
These
went
are
all the
SIT
way up to the
appointed by the
Supreme
state
Court,
government.
just a
The
few
state
weeks ago,
government
the court
as judges
gave an
who are
order.
under the control of the state government.
It was a
These are the
three-judge
SITs
bench.
headed by people under the control of the chief minister.
Three-judge
How will
bench
they
of
rule
the
against the
Supreme
same chief
Court,
minister?
Tausif, it was a three-judge bench of the Supreme Court which gave the verdict exactly a month ago on Zakia Jaffrey's petition.
And Kapil Sibal appeared. Kapil Sibal was the lawyer.
Tausif.
We know what state Supreme Court is in under Prime Ministership of Modi ji. This Supreme Court
contempt of the
senior
law.
most judges
You're
came out
making-
in a press conference and said that all is not right in the Supreme Court. We cannot forget that.
No.
Not
Now you're
long
making
ago,
allegations
just a couple
against the
of
Supreme
years
Court.
ago, top senior judges of the Supreme Court
Now you're
held a
making
press
allegations
conference
against the Supreme
and
Court.
said that all is not right in Supreme
No,
Court.
that
So
is
you
not
cannot turn
acceptable. If you
blind eye to that.
sir, no. These are allegations against Supreme Court judges. These
What
are very grave.
allegation? Are
These are
you
very
denying
grave
that there was
matters.
no
These
press
are very
conference
grave
by Supreme Court
matters.
judges?
Let
Sitting
me
Supreme Court senior judges.
let me go back to.
Please do not sell your soul, Zaka. Let us be truthful.
Let me go to Ajay
Let us
Umat.
be truthful.
Let me go to Ajay Umat.
Let us
Ajay
be
Umat,
truthful.
what is being said in this affidavit is there were multiple meetings that Teesta Setalvad had with Ahmed Patel, and that money was given to her on 2 occasions at least. That's
Ahmed
what this
Patel is
affidavit
no more
says.
alive to defend himself.
These are
all afterthoughts that you
one
have
second,
come up.
Tausif, let me do this debate, please. Ajay Umat, what the Congress is saying is, if you had this information, why did you not reveal this when Ahmed Patel was alive? It's been 5 years since he died. How come you have this information now and you're releasing this to the public?
Look, the same witnesses have said, we all know that, they are hostile now. But I don't want to go into that matter because it is a sub judice. But the fact remains that in Gujarat, we have assembly elections. And this would become a very, very emotional issue in 2022 December elections in Gujarat. And BJP may get advantage out of it. The way, in 2007, Sonia Gandhi said that Modi is a maut ka saudagar, and he turned out to be a vote ka saudagar because, it has created a lot of emotional appeal. So this time also, because, BJP is now making it an issue that, Sonia Gandhi is at the behest of Sonia Gandhi, Ahmed Bhai did this, and, it was an attempt to destabilize BJP's government or to destabilize Mr. Narendra Modi's government. I think in 2022 December election, BJP will get advantage out of this.
No, but Ajay,
That is
again, the political argument is you can have it one of 2 ways. Either the BJP wants to brush this under the carpet and rewrite the history of 2002 Gujarat riots, or you are saying they will derive the political benefit out of it. Both of it can't be true. Only one of it can be true.
No, look, BJP will get advantage of this because, BJP will play a victim card in this case that, look, they were trying to tarnish the image of Mr. Narendra Modi and Bharatiya Janata Party that, you have engineered all these things. So they continued to fight this battle for 20 years. And now because they will be exhibiting that, look, we have got a clean sheet from Supreme Court and whatever we are doing at the direction of Supreme Court that we are taking this action.
But
and
here is the thing that I don't understand. And Shehzad, please weigh in.
2002.
I don't know. I mean, I don't come from Gujarat, but I've covered elections there. I don't think anyone in Gujarat is going to vote either for BJP or against BJP basis allegations against Ahmed Patel. He's been dead for the last 5 years. I mean, I can't remember the last time he contested a direct election. I think it was in the 80s. One second, to Shehzad.
No, to cynically reduce this entire issue as an exercise in election and vote getting is absolutely uncalled for. I think this is an issue of justice. Justice A for the people who suffered, and justice B for the people who were unfairly targeted. And that doesn't mean Narendra Modi ji. CM Narendra Modi ji was rewarded by the people of India already, but the people of Gujarat and a people of a particular community were made to become like villains, and therefore I think there has to be restitution about that too. And these people have committed 10 big riots against Muslims during the Congress regime, Nelli, Hashimpura, Bhagalpur, Mariana, Meerut, and there was a genocide of Sikhs in 1984. No place justice was ensured, and today they made this entire propaganda. It was a cottage industry of hate and propaganda, and that exists even today, except the issues have become internationalized. So today Tausif Rahman Khan or Taisif Khan should come out and apologize on behalf of Rahul Gandhi, for defaming people of Gujarat, defaming Hindus, and also attacking innocent people unnecessarily.
Tausif, again, I go back to what the SIT is saying. It says the ocular evidence collected by the investigating officer points to several meetings that were conducted in Delhi with political leaders after riots, wherein it was discussed by the accused applicant, in this case Teesta, with leaders of a prominent national party in power to implicate the names of senior leaders of the BJP government in the state of Gujarat. This is a sworn affidavit that they have given to court, by the way.
Zaka, no SIT in India can declare that Narendra Modi was not the chief minister of Gujarat when Gujarat was burning. And as long as Modi cannot get an SIT to declare that, Modi will be responsible for the Gujarat riot. He cannot shun his responsibility as the chief executor of the state, as the chief minister of the state. He is responsible for every
by that logic, there were 3 days of riots in Bengal, your home state, after the 2021 elections. Who is responsible for that?
Riots, the ghost of Gujarat riot will continue to haunt Narendra Modi in the parliament where he sleeps. He will spend sleepless nights, and the
Swapnil Kothari, final word.
Will continue to
again.
haunt him.
I keep saying this. If the Supreme Court appointed SIT has given him a clean sheet, and now no less than a 3-judge bench last month, said that this was an international conspiracy to keep the pot boiling, then I don't know what else the opposition is asking for.
Well, the opposition is asking for some sort of a make-believe defense where they really would like to sit in the corner and believe that what they are saying is absolutely true, but that doesn't function in a democracy. That's number one. Number two is that all the evidences that you pointed out, fabrication of evidence, forging of documents, tutoring of witnesses, making typed affidavits and making people sign, all of these are extremely gross things to put on an affidavit. And I'm sure they know what they're doing when they're putting this on an affidavit, on a sworn affidavit. Otherwise, if you cannot buttress those allegations, then you would be definitely held up for perjury. Thirdly, as far as the Supreme Court proceedings are concerned, or an internal problems of the Supreme Court are concerned, the very same Congress party acting through Mr. Kapil Sibal had withdrawn those applications at that point in time. Fourthly and lastly, let me tell you something, that, as far as the ghosts haunting Mr. Narendra Modi are concerned, I'm sure he's got great exorcists to exercise any ghosts who are there, if they're at all haunting him at all.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. I want to thank Swapnil Kothari, Shehzad Poonawala, Ajay Umart and Tausif Ahmed for joining us. We'll see how this story plays out. The bail application for hearing comes up on Monday. Meanwhile, the other big political story tonight, after picking Draupadi Murmu as the presidential candidate, the NDA now has picked Jagdeep Dhankar as the vice presidential candidate. With a public service career spanning 3 decades, Jagdeep Dhankar is currently the governor of Bengal, a post he's held since 2019. He's been dubbed by the BJP as Kisan Putra and the people's governor. Prime Minister Modi tweeted that Jagdeep Dhankar is a man known for his humility. He also said that Dhankar brings with him an illustrious legal, legislative and gubernatorial career and was always have worked for the well-being of farmers, youth, women and the marginalized. The last date of nomination is July the 19th. The election for vice president will be held on the 6th of August.
सभी नामों पर गौर करने के बाद हम सब लोग और भारतीय जनता पार्टी की संसदीय बोर्ड इस निष्कर्ष पर पहुंची है कि उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी और एनडीए के प्रत्याशी के रूप में हमारे किसान पुत्र श्री जगदीप धनखड़ जी को हम उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए अपना प्रत्याशी के रूप में घोषित करते हैं।
भारतीय जनता पार्टी की लोकसभा और राज्यसभा दोनों में अथाह मेजॉरिटी है। वाइस प्रेसिडेंट के चुनाव में सिर्फ राज्यसभा और लोकसभा के लोग ही मेंबर्स ही वोट देते हैं, इसलिए उनका उम्मीदवार वाइस प्रेसिडेंट जीत ही जाएगा, इसमें कहीं कोई दो राय नहीं है। लेकिन जिसको उन्होंने उम्मीदवार बनाया है वो इस आधार पे नहीं बनाया कि वो कोई कॉम्पिटेंट आदमी है, वो कोई देश के हित में है। वो जो भी फैसला करते हैं वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के हित में, सिर्फ राजनीतिक फैसला है कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी को इससे क्या फायदा पहुंचेगा।
Explain to our viewers the choice of Jagdeep Dhankar. What is the calculation and why him?
If you see Mr. Dhankar's role in West Bengal, a state that has seen near collapse of law and order and the gruesome post-poll violence, he stuck steadfastly to the constitutionally laid down principles, irrespective of what Mamata Banerjee and the TMC government may have said about Jagdeep Dhankar and accused him of stepping over the line. He was someone who never breached the constitutional limits. He did not ever step out of his realm as governor. And I think that is incredible quality for someone to occupy the vice president's office. That experience, that legal understanding, that acumen that he brings is quite unparalleled. Having said that, he naturally represents the aspiration of the farming community. He is a Jat by caste. He comes from Rajasthan. He's somebody who is a self-made man, ticks a lot of boxes, is somebody who's widely seen as a man who will add to the heft of the vice president's office. It is for Mamata Banerjee to decide if she wants to support or oppose Mr. Dhankar, because she's not had the best of relationship with him. But just like the presidential candidate, we will ensure that our vice president nominee says through.
And Mr. Mitra, your first reaction, Jagdeep Dhankar has been nominated by the NDA to be the vice presidential candidate.
Let me make it very crystal clear to you.
Yeah.
It is a very sensitive matter, and the decision of our party will be taken by Ms. Mamata Banerjee only. So in this matter, so far we are concerned, we don't like to make any comment. Only I could say that Mr. Dhankar did not play any active role so far the Bengal is concerned, and she did do nothing good with which the Bengalis are happy.
CNN News 18 is New India's #1 news choice. Trounces, Times Now and Republic TV.
Did you manifest this pan-Indian film? You signed on 2018, let's tell everyone. 2-3 people who don't know, he signed on 2018 before KGF.
2-3 people means only 2-3 people watch your show?
No, yeah, 2-3 people who don't know that.
Okay.
They all know your trivia, na? We all know trivia about you.
Point.
We all know too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your question though?
That you signed this on before KGF, before Bahubali, no, before RRR, after Bahubali. So were you prescient? Did you know that this is the kind of film Indian audiences are going to like?
Unfortunately, I didn't write the film, so so actually he was someone who was, I guess, above.
Ekta and me.
Ekta and him were ahead of the curve. But at the time that it came to me, it seemed very exciting. I felt very lucky to be offered a film like this. Yeah, and here we are sitting about the film, very excited. 22nd July the film releases, and the 2-3 people who don't know that, it's an action entertainer, it's a badass entertaining film, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Don't try to wrap up just yet.
क्यों हो गया? पीछे से बोले ना?
No one is saying. No one is saying. Lyle is just.
He's playing with your psyche all along.
He does. Does he do this on sets as well?
No,
Do you
no,
guys
no.
feel very demotivated when you go home?
See, I've realized
Demotivated. What is happening?
I wake up motivated.
Okay. And then you meet Ranbir.
Yeah. I'm fine.
See,
He's been demotivating me since
Every time
morning.
you do interviews, you always ask the masti-core questions. So when I'm allowed to do masti, why only you're allowed?
That's fine. That's fine. But don't pretend on sets you're like very disciplined,
Why
very
do I have to
sweet,
pretend?
introvert.
Have you been on my set?
You're very disciplined on your set.
I don't know. Ask them. Am I?
Yeah.
He's very disciplined. No, genuinely he is. Genuinely. It's a shocking transition that happens.
Okay, fine. It's a question I asked. Good to know.
She doesn't want to receive the answer, but she's living with it.
Okay. And as a co-star, he's okay.
Yeah, just about okay.
Just about okay.
He manages.
We manage. We jail him.
We sail through.
I know you did Kathak for this film. You prepared for this film.
I did.
What
Few
about
sessions.
you? You prepared?
I prepared falling down in a chair. For 6 months, I was just falling down chairs.
It's a larger than life role, and you're so real.
No,
You're
let's. I
too
mean,
real.
on a serious note, this film came with a lot of challenges because it's a part which I've never done in my life. In the 15-year career that I've had, I'm playing two characters, Shamshera and Obali. It was a character which was filled with angst. It's something which angst doesn't naturally come.
Welcome to yet another edition of Bits to Billions. Now, it's rare to find a unicorn in the manufacturing space in India that has ambitions of making in India for the world. But that's the difference here with Zetwork. We have the co-founder and CEO Amrit Acharya, who wants to bring together OEMs and EPC firms with small and medium enterprises and really help manufacture components for a wide array of industries. Amrit, welcome to the show. What do we have right here? Which industry does this go in? Do these components go into?
Yeah, so these specific products are called jaws and fixtures. They are used for holding machine components together. This is primarily for automobile industry, aerospace industry, and the space industry. More broadly, some of the things we make in this factory ultimately go into the fuselage of an aircraft, or they go into the fuel injection systems of various kind of automobile components.
Right. Is it exciting to, train for engineering and actually do engineering, because we see so many people doing civil and mechanical and aerospace and ultimately crossing over to software and internet?
I mean, I was part of that trend. Like, I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, but I ended up doing nothing close to electrical engineering for many years. In fact, I was at McKinsey for a bit. But at my heart, I always felt that calling, that I really liked building things using my bare hands sometimes, and we wanted, when I came back from the US to India, building a company which held true to those roots in my case was very important for me.
What I also wanted to ask you, Amrit, is if I look at your own trajectory, right? As you said, you did electrical engineering. You have roots in Odisha.
Yes.
Then you went to IIT Madras. You worked at ITC. Then you did your masters abroad. You worked at McKinsey. And then you decide to come back in India in an industry which is all about forging and casting and machining and fabrication. You can call it, unsexy at a time when we've seen so many people do internet startups.
Yes.
So why did you decide to choose an unsexy industry, so to speak, the road less traveled?
In my first job at ITC was to build a new factory for them. In fact, when I joined, they had just bought the land, and over the next 2 years, built a lot of the buildings, bought a lot of the machines, hired a lot of people. And I really fell in love with manufacturing back then. I did that for 2 years, and then I took a detour after that. But when I was looking to come back to from the US to India, I looked back at what I had done before. And my co-founder Srinath, his family business was also into manufacturing. His father ran a small manufacturing unit, not that different from this one where we are here today. So while it was unsexy, for us it was very sexy because we understood the pain points in a way which it felt unique to us. It felt very authentic to us that these are problems we are passionate about. I certainly had felt that between the time I was doing this work at ITC to today, nothing much had changed in this industry. And I felt that I wanted to drive some change there.
Right. Amrit, the name Zetwork means strong foundation. How did you come up with it?
Yeah, so when we're looking for a name, if you look at the history of the manufacturing industry, a lot of the companies are good companies, are European or American companies. Even L&T was started by 2 Danish engineers, Larsen and Toubro. Of course, it was a strong foundational Indian company. So we wanted a name which was European to signify excellence.
To signify quality.
To signify quality, and Zetwork actually means strong foundations in Dutch. It also rhymes with network, so it was a great combination of all factors.
Right, and today if I look at your client roster, right, it has the who's who from the world of manufacturing, EPC, from L&T to BHEL to GE to even Flipkart. How tough was it to go to these giants and convince them that we are a 3-year-old startup, 2-year-old startup, and we will make these things for you?
Yeah. So these things take time. While we see the ultimate output of all the hard work that goes into company building process, the reality is these are never overnight successes. There's a quote I like: it takes 15 years to become an overnight success. And in some cases, that's very true for us. Like a lot of these companies, we have taken our time to feel confident that we can service these customers over a period of time, and vice versa from their side to us. Like a lot of the questions we get initially are, hey, where is your factory? And then we have to explain people the model, like, look, this is a different way of getting your products manufactured. Ultimately, what do you care about? You care about quality, you care about timelines, you care about price. We will meet all of those 3 requirements, but the way we do it is slightly different from what you may have experienced before. Now that's a journey. Some companies understand that, and those are your early adopters, and some companies take a little bit more time. But what we have been able to demonstrate time and again is that the model works. In fact, we are sometimes better than their existing alternatives because we diversify the risk of manufacturing across many suppliers. A single order at Zetwork does not go to a single supplier; it goes to 5, 10 suppliers, and so we are often 10x faster than what they would have experienced by themselves. So it starts small. Every customer gives us a small order only at the beginning, but what we see is over a period of time, they 10x their business volumes with us over a year.
Right. Amrit, we are also talking at a point where, if you look at the macro, people are talking about fears of a recession in the US. Even in India, there is worry of inflation, the impact, the knock-on effects that it has. Startups, you live in the startup hub, so I'm sure you're hearing a lot about layoffs and funding winter. Where does Zetwork really stand here? Because in a sense, your fortunes are tied to, the macroeconomic scenario, the macro environment. So how are you kind of navigating this tough phase?
Yeah, I mean, so couple of things. One is, we turned profitable as a business last year. We have not announced these results publicly yet, but they'll be public soon. And we did it. It was not the flavor of the season, to your point. There was a lot of emphasis on growth. While we also grew a lot last year, we grew profitably. And hence, in some way, our destiny is under our control because we can choose to go aggressive or not. And we don't have to rely on some of these extreme measures that you talked about because in some way, our destiny is under our control. That being said, we've done a few other things. Our business is very diversified. One is across all these industries. We serve oil and gas, we serve aerospace, we serve auto, we serve infrastructure, we serve consumer electronics. While there is recession, there's no recession which is universal across all sectors. There is cyclicalities within sectors. So some go up, some go down.
So some will hedge you if the others...
Yeah, we have a lot of natural hedge. Secondly, almost 25% of our business comes from the US and Europe.
But isn't that going to be a worry? Because everybody is talking about how US itself will slip into a recession.
Yeah. Now, we are certainly seeing that to some extent. Like some of our US customers, the pace at which they were doing business with us, there is a difference between this year and last year. That being said, we are also big in India. So what I mean is there are hedges. There are pockets, times when US will be very strong, which is what we saw last year. This year US may be a little bit soft, but that's when our India business kind of takes over. We are also diversifying into Middle East, we're diversifying into Europe.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, look, these are very hard things to predict. You know, which industry will do well at any point in time, which country will do well at any point in time. Our idea is to build a resilient business where each of these things by themselves don't significantly affect the.
But will you also have to lay off, or are you hiring, or are you
we are business as usual. There is no change in how we are operating.
And you're capitalized as well because you raised a.
We have you know, we have raised close to $500 million over the last 4 years, and most of it is in the bank, and we are profitable, so we're in a good place.
Amrit, I also wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, what is it about the air at IIT Madras that it seems to produce a lot of these interesting deep tech startups. Of course, you have Zetwork, then you have Sridhar Vembu of Zoho, who also wants to reimagine R&D and manufacturing in India. Then you have very interesting space tech startups like, you know, Agnikul Cosmos and Galaxy Eye.
You have Aether also.
Yeah. So what is it about IIT Madras that seems to produce more of these deep tech startups?
IIT Madras historically, at least to my knowledge, has had a very strong technical orientation. So a lot of the people we looked up to were people who used to go for doing their PhDs in Stanford or Berkeley or some of these places. And they were doing PhD in very technical fields. So in some way we are emulating them in a more business context. We are solving really technical problems that way. IIT Madras also did something really well 10 years back when I was still in college. They introduced this thing called Center for Innovation, which was specifically for hardware kind of oriented companies. And today there is a thriving ecosystem of, I know people who are designing wheelchairs, people who are designing EVs, people who are designing, some of the professors have become entrepreneurs. And a professor becoming an entrepreneur will not start a food delivery company. They will start something which is in their specialization. So that's part of the culture at IIT Madras.
How were you in college? You used to take part in the Sarang and Shastra, or were you?
I was in Sarang. We had this thing called Core Group, which was designing the festival. I was in charge of getting money for them. So in some way, nothing has changed. Fundraising in some way I learned at Sarang. At Shastra, we had these lot of programs. One of this thing called Junkyard Wars, which is basically we went to a workshop and built a vehicle from scratch. We won second prize there when I was in my second year, and through that I got an internship at Bosch. So I've been very hands-on, technical, quote unquote, in my entire journey that way.
Founded in 2018 by Amit Acharya, Srinath Ramakrishnan, Rahul Sharma and Vishal Chaudhary, Zetwork is a manufacturing platform connecting original equipment manufacturers and engineering procurement construction customers across India, North America and Southeast Asia with small and medium-sized enterprises. It is present in categories such as fabrication, machining, casting and forging. It helps customers in procuring custom products which are not available off the shelf, real-time tracking and project management all the way till delivery. It has over 100 clients in North America, ranging from small enterprises to large conglomerates. It makes nail clippers for one company, for instance, seen as a niche market, but used widely at the same time. Most of its founders have a background at the IITs or ITC. It recently elevated Ankit Fatehpuria as its 5th co-founder.
Vishal, Rahul, Ankit, thank you very much for joining us on Bits to Billions. So, you know, very interesting composition of founders. You all either have an IIT connection or an ITC connection. So tell us a little about that. How did that come about? And ITC especially seems to be seems to have a very strong bond with Zetwork.
Yeah, so I mean, after IIT we went to ITC. That was our first job as management trainees. Coincidentally, between me, Srinath, and Amrit, we had the same boss, and we had the same location, Guntur.
Was the boss so bad that all of you had to leave?
No, actually, he also happens to be an angel investor in our company, so we bonded very well with him. And financial independence, first job, 3 of us would go to bar together, would talk about love life together. So that's how we became very close. Eventually, we parted ways. People went on their different directions. But when we thought of starting something, this gang was the first group we'd reach out to.
And you also have an ITC.
Yeah, so I didn't work with them. What happened when they moved out of ITC? Then I moved to a new office where my boss was the same Vishal is talking about.
Okay, this boss seems to be the glue that
Yeah, and that boss referred Ankit.
Yes.
Please take him.
Yes, yes.
But Ankit, do you feel a little left out? I mean, there are like 2 IIT Madras and one IIT Kharagpur and
Absolutely not. I am super comfortable. If there was one more chartered accountant in the gang, then probably I would have felt a little uncomfortable. But it's like one.
Now he kind of can reign supreme as the sole chartered accountant.
Of course. I was the one who wasn't part of the ITC gang, right? I ended up working with Srinath at Blackbuck. And that's how the connection came into existence. So I'm the only one who is not from an ITC, I'm from Blackbuck.
So there's an IIT, ITC and a Blackbuck
exactly,
mafia
exactly.
play here. So the cliche goes that, 2's company, 3's crowd. Here you have 5 co-founders. Srinath is not here. But how does the dynamic work? Is it like too many co-founders in one go, or is it just, you guys doing your separate thing?
Yeah, so I think we are very clearly defined as we have evolved over the last 3.5 years on what mandate each of us run in the company. So I run the whole industrial mandate. Rahul runs the consumer mandate, and Ankit runs the whole upstream mandate for the company. So that way our boundaries are very clearly defined. The asks are very clearly defined, and but at the same time it always helps to dig each other's head to take inputs on what is it that if I need help on something, I would go to Rahul or an Ankit. But the boundaries of work are fairly clearly defined. So that way it has worked for us so far.
And to add to that, right, of course in the initial days, you would find it difficult because you're new folks who have come in again to work together. But we decided in the very first go that when we take a decision, the decision has to be about the company. We put the company first above all of us. So in that way, whenever you call out that, hey, are you putting the company first, the decision making becomes easier. And that's the alignment that has been working for all of us.
So who has the final veto or the vote among the 5?
We don't have that culture of final veto or vote. It's always comes as a group consensus.
Yeah, we try to convince each other on certain things. And for example, if I raise out few risks or if I raise out few doubts, everyone tries to convince and then take a call for the company. Right? If it's in the end making sense for the company, why not? Right? How can it happen that I might feel it's not working for the company and someone else might feel it works? Right? Ideally, both have to align. So the culture is to align and drive it together rather than to take unilateral decisions.
Yeah, I don't remember any event where we had to put something to vote.
We have a culture of disagree and commit, but rarely it happens. When we walk out of the room, we agree and walk out.
Okay. You also straddle, a very different world because you have part of the old economy with you. That's the segment you service. But you're also trying to marry that with the software solutions you have for tracking and so on, and matching requirements. So how does this reflect in the kind of hiring that you do?
Yeah, so I think we have very distinct people. On one hand, like you said, software engineers who were coding for a very different kind of a company before, and now they are working with us. And on the other hand, hardcore technocrats to build refineries or some of that stuff. But I think as founders, what we have been able to drive is the marrying of these two very independent worlds, and both see a lot of value. Because see, historically, industrial as a segment has never got a lot of love from the technology side, right? There are not many softwares, there are not many tools to ease the way they do their jobs.
Right.
Another aspect I would like to add is, in a lot of these industrial full stack conventional companies like L&T, Tata and all, the freshers or the mid-level managers, when they come from their college, want to implement some sort of a technology, want to change the way of working, they don't get that liberty. Because these companies run with their own long SOPs. But over here, that flexibility and our mindset is technology, So even the guys who join us in the ops role, they get that liberty to, kind of do the same thing in a different way. Marry technology and business together.
while we are not doing logistics yet, but we have started experiments with working capital, with procurement, etc. And increasingly they will be a part of our strategy moving forward.
To say that.
I was just flying high, in, like taking those leaps and jumps and all.
Very beautiful, very ethereal, I have to say. And Ranbir, now this is a pan-India film. I want to say.
Who said it's a pan-India film?
It's a pan-India film, right?
Who
You're
says
releasing in so many languages, not pan-India.
It's pan-world.
Pan-world, okay. Pan-universe.
Pan-universe, multi-universe.
Multi-universe. Did you manifest this pan-Indian film? You signed on 2018, let's tell everyone. 2-3 people who don't know, he signed on 2018 before KGF.
2-3 people means only 2-3 people watch your show?
No, yeah, 2-3 people who don't know that you,
okay.
they all know your trivia. Na? We all know trivia about you.
Point.
We all know too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your question though?
That you signed this on before KGF, before Bahubali, no, before RRR, after Bahubali. So were you prescient? Did you know that this is the kind of film Indian audiences are going to like?
Unfortunately, I didn't write the film, so so actually he was someone who was, I guess, above.
Ekta and me.
Ekta and him were ahead of the curve. But at the time that it came to me, it seemed very exciting. You know, I felt very lucky to be offered a film like this. Yeah, and here we are sitting about the film, very excited. 22nd July the film releases, and the 2-3 people who don't know that, you know, it's an action entertainer, it's a badass entertaining film, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Don't try to wrap up just yet.
क्यों हो गया? पीछे से बोले ना?
No one is saying. No one is saying. Lyle is just.
He's playing with your psyche all along.
He does. Does he do this on sets as well?
No,
do you
no,
guys
no.
feel very demotivated when you go home?
See, I've realized
demotivated. What is happening?
I wake up motivated.
Okay. And then you meet Ranbir.
Yeah. I'm fine.
See, you're
been demotivating me since
Every
morning.
time you do interviews, you always ask the masti-core questions. So when I'm allowed to do masti, why only you're allowed?
That's fine. That's fine. But don't pretend on sets you're like very disciplined, very sweet, introvert.
Have you been on my set?
You're very disciplined on your set.
I don't know. Ask them. Am I?
Yeah.
He's very disciplined. No, genuinely, he is genuinely.
Above.
It's a shocking transition that happens.
Okay, fine. It's a question I asked. Good.
When I look at Zetwork, apart from the lines of business you have today, the obvious derivative use cases would also be around logistics or procurement materials. Is it something that you're already doing in a big way, something that you will perhaps double down on going forward?
We are doing bits and pieces of it. So if you look at our business from a supplier lens, if you look at the SME as the heart of our business, in some way we are giving new orders to that small manufacturer.
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing that they need. Once they get an order, we feel that the ecosystem to execute that order is broken in our country. Whether it's logistics, whether it's procurement, whether it's working capital, there's a host of services which a typical small manufacturer needs, which are missing in the country today. Over a period of time, we have started to think about our business that way. Like of course, we start by increasing the revenue of that entity. If they were doing 1 crore of business last year, via Zetwork, this year they'll do 1.5 crores, 2 crores. But over and above, how can we help them execute that better? So while we are not doing logistics yet, but we have started experiments with working capital, with procurement, etc. And increasingly, they will be a part of our strategy moving forward. The idea is to build an operating system for manufacturing.
So credit, B2B.
Credit, helping them buy raw materials better at a faster speed. See, one thing we realized when we were looking at our data, when you give an order to a SME to make a product from start to finish, there are, let's say, 10 steps in that journey from step 1 to step 10. 80% of the delays happened in step 1 itself, which is buying the raw material. People were taking long time to buy that raw material. And why was that? For various reasons, that their cash was stuck, they were waiting to get the best rates, etc. And that's when we realized, right, to solve for our customer experience, because our customers value on-time delivery, they value quality. Ultimately, if the things are breaking at the last mile, and if we really want to make a dent, we actually have to solve this problem at some point in our time. We can do it through partnerships. We don't have to do everything ourselves.
In terms of policy, what do you think needs to be done better for manufacturing companies like yours in terms of improving the ease of doing business?
Sure. No, I feel like fundamentally there's been, I mean, we have seen the business from last 3-4 years only, so we didn't know what existed before. But certainly things like GST, things like PLI, which is an incentive scheme by the government to encourage production of various items in India. These are certainly real impact that we are seeing. Like, I'll give a simple example. With GST, what has happened? Prior to GST, the country was very localized. Like, if you were a manufacturer based in southern India, your market was limited to southern India because it was very difficult with excise and that. But today the country has opened up. So your market has become, there's one tax. And because of that, the market has opened up in a big way. And we are seeing supply chains being reconstructed as we speak. And definitely we find ourselves at the right place at the right time. You know, some of this we did not anticipate. But it has been a big game changer, at least as far as manufacturing is concerned. And secondly, you know, there are things like if you're creating a new manufacturing entity, there are a lot of tax rebates. The taxation that you're subject to is lower than a normal new corporate. And things like PLI, which encourage production. And production can be both for domestic and for exports. The only thing is we have to be a little patient. These things don't happen overnight. Like even GST, it's a 4-year, 5-year process. We are starting to see the impact of these things today. Every month we are setting, the government is setting records in terms of GST collections. But these things take time. Certainly the intent is very strong. That's what I can say.
But any challenges that you see that, you know, can be done better in terms of the ease of doing business as someone who's in the manufacturing space today?
Nothing in particular that stands out. I think you know, there is of course a process for everything, and those processes have been set for various reasons, historically reasons. So it's not up to us to question those. I think the more importantly than looking back, it's important to look forward.
And be long-term impatient, long-term patient, as you said. But if I look at the first, it's just been 4 years since you started, you've already